There are battles taking place inside our bodies every day that we cannot see at all. When you take a deep breath, when your heart quietly pumps blood throughout your body, when a single cell transforms food into energy, billions of chemical reactions are silently unfolding in the darkness of the microscopic world. Oxygen sustains life, but, like many powerful forces in nature, it carries a paradox. The very processes that help us produce energy can also generate reactive molecules, free radicals capable of altering the structures around them. And then, somewhere within the body, an intricate defense system begins to work. Antioxidants appear not as miraculous heroes, but as guardians of balance in a world that is constantly in motion. But what is really happening inside us? Are antioxidants truly the anti-aging shield that advertisements often promise? Why does the body produce its own glutathione and protective enzymes? Why are blueberries deep blue and purple, carrots bright orange, and tomatoes brilliantly red? And perhaps even more surprisingly, why is a certain amount of oxidative stress not always an enemy? Why can it sometimes become a signal that helps the body adapt, repair itself, and grow stronger? Tonight, we will journey into this invisible world. We will encounter free radicals, explore the tiny energy factories known as mitochondria, discover the chemical defense teams that quietly protect our cells, and then step into the garden of nature, where plants have spent hundreds of millions of years creating extraordinary colors and compounds to protect themselves. Through a perspective gently inspired by Carl Gustav Jung, perhaps we will also recognize a familiar pattern. Life does not survive by completely eliminating everything that stands in opposition to it. Light would have little meaning if there had never been darkness. Growth does not come from avoiding every challenge, but from our ability to face difficulty, adjust, and find balance again. Inside every cell, there is a story much like this, a story between creation and repair, between damage and recovery. Welcome to our journey tonight. Let your body relax. Let the unfinished thoughts of the day slowly drift away, and allow these quiet stories of science to gently guide you towards sleep. If you enjoy deep journeys into the mind, life, and the silent mysteries of the world, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join us for the nights ahead. And now, let us begin where everything is already happening, inside you, stepping into the invisible world of antioxidants, perhaps at this very moment. As you lie still and listen to this slow story unfolding in the night, an immense world is taking place inside your body, one that the naked eye will never see. Trillions of cells are quietly at work. There is no sound, no spotlight, no moment announcing when they begin or when they finish their work. They simply continue to exist, to transform, repair, communicate, and adapt. With every heartbeat, oxygen travels toward the farthest regions of your body. With every breath, you bring into yourself an element from the outside world, an element that transformed the history of life on Earth. And deep inside each cell, oxygen is used to help produce energy. But in the very place where life is being sustained, a paradox begins to emerge. Oxygen is essential for the efficient production of energy in much of the body. Yet during metabolism, a small number of molecules can become more chemically reactive. These are often grouped together as reactive oxygen species, some of which are free radicals. Imagine them as restless chemical characters searching for a more stable state. When present in appropriate amounts, they are not simply agents of destruction. The body actually uses certain oxidative signals in many biological processes, from cellular communication to immune responses. But when the balance is disturbed, when reactive molecules are produced faster than the body's systems can control them, they may contribute to damage to important cellular structures. And this is where the story of antioxidants begins. We often hear the word antioxidant on food packages, in cosmetic advertisements, or in descriptions of certain fruits, labeled as superfoods. But beneath all the marketing, the real story is far more subtle. Antioxidants are not a magical army capable of stopping time. They cannot simply erase aging, eliminate all damage, or transform the human body into an immortal machine. Their more important role lies in participating in networks of protection and regulation, helping maintain a balance between processes that generate oxidizing molecules and the systems that control them. Some antioxidants come from the foods we eat. Vitamin C can be found in many fruits and vegetables. Vitamin E is present in nuts, seeds, and vegetable oils. And countless compounds produced by plants are studied for their biological activity. But one of the most fascinating things is that the human body does not depend entirely on food to defend itself. Inside us already exists an extraordinary system of protection. There are enzymes designed to process reactive molecules. There are mechanisms that repair damage. And there are molecules such as glutathione, which play important roles in maintaining the chemical environment within cells. The protection of life, therefore, does not exist inside a single pill or a single miraculous fruit. It is more like a symphony. Each instrument has meaning only because it plays alongside the others. If we look more deeply, we may discover an interesting resemblance between this story and the way Carl Gustav Jung viewed the human psyche. Jung was deeply interested in the tension between opposing forces within our inner lives, consciousness and the unconscious, the persona and the shadow, the parts of ourselves we are willing to acknowledge and the parts we often try to hide. Growth, in a way that reflects the spirit of Jung's thought, does not simply mean destroying one side so that only the other remains. A person does not become whole by denying the darkness. We become more complete by recognizing and integrating what belongs to us. Within the world of the cell, there is a similar balance. It is easy to imagine that oxidation is always bad and antioxidants are always good. But nature rarely operates through such simple divisions. A suitable amount of oxidative signaling can be part of normal biological activity. The immune system can use reactive molecules in its responses against certain threats. Physical exercise can also create temporary oxidative changes and then stimulate adaptive mechanisms. The goal of life, therefore, is not to create a world completely free from stress, damage, or reaction. The goal is the ability to respond, to repair, to adapt, and to find balance again. Perhaps this is one of the most beautiful lessons we can learn from this invisible world. The body is not a motionless castle built to resist every change. It is more like a river that never stops moving. Every day, our cells respond to changes in food, sleep, light, movement, environment, and time. Molecules are created and disappear. Some structures are damaged and then repaired. Some cells complete their life cycles and make room for others. Life is not a state of perfection. It is a continuous process of adjustment. Think about that for a quiet moment. Perhaps, inside your body right now, molecules are being created, transformed, and neutralized. There are systems working that you have never had to consciously command. You do not need to wake up in the middle of the night to remind an enzyme to do its job. You do not need to consciously direct every cell to repair its structures. Most of this work takes place in silence, like an enormous city operating beneath the ground. And perhaps because we cannot see it, we often forget how extraordinary it is. We tend to notice the body when it hurts, when it becomes tired, when something no longer works as we expect. But on ordinary days, when you can breathe, walk, think, see colors, and listen to a story before sleep, billions of processes are working together to make those simple experiences possible. Antioxidants, therefore, are not merely a scientific term printed on a food label. They are one small part of a much larger story about how life protects itself from some of the consequences of simply being alive. To create energy, the body must transform matter. To survive in a changing world, the body must adapt. And every adaptation requires systems capable of controlling, repairing, and recovering. There is something deeply beautiful about this paradox. The very processes that give us energy can sometimes create risk. Mild stress can sometimes encourage adaptation, and the body itself, while facing changes that cannot entirely be avoided, learns to preserve its balance. Tonight, as we enter the world of antioxidants, let us temporarily forget the advertisements that promise miracles. Let us look deeper, because the real story is far more fascinating. It is the story of a chemical dialogue stretching back to the time when life first learned how to survive in a world filled with oxygen. It is the story of millions of years of evolution creating intricate networks of defense. And above all, it is the story of balance, a condition that is never completely still, yet one that life is always quietly trying to restore. And to understand why the body needs such a complex network of protection, we must return to the central character of this story, something every one of us breathes in without giving it much thought, a gift of life, but all the source of a profound chemical paradox. That is oxygen, free radicals, and the paradox of oxygen. If, in the previous chapter, we opened the door to the invisible world inside the human body, now let us go a little deeper to meet a character so familiar that we almost forget how extraordinary it truly is. That character is oxygen. You have breathed in oxygen tens of thousands of times today. You do not have to think about it. You do not have to command your lungs to expand, your blood to carry oxygen, or trillions of cells to use this invisible gift. Oxygen enters the body quietly, leaving almost no trace in conscious awareness. And yet, behind every breath lies one of the deepest paradoxes of life. The very thing that helps us produce energy can also, under certain conditions, contribute to the formation of molecules capable of causing damage. This is not a simple story about a hero and a villain. The science of oxidation is far more complex. When cells use oxygen to transform nutrients into energy, especially through processes involving the mitochondria, certain reactive molecules can be produced. We often hear the name free radicals, but the world of reactive substances inside the body is broader than that. Some molecules are free radicals, others are not free radicals, yet can still participate actively in oxidative reactions. Scientists often group many of these molecules under the term reactive oxygen species, or ROS. And here is the important point. Their presence does not automatically mean danger. At appropriate physiological levels, oxidative signals can participate in regulating cellular activity. Problems tend to arise when the balance is pushed too far, when reactive molecules are produced in excessive amounts, or when the body's systems for controlling and repairing their effects can no longer keep pace. Imagine life as a flame protected inside a lamp. The flame gives warmth, it gives light, but without control, it can also burn the very structure that contains it. Oxygen carries a similar paradoxical beauty. Thanks to oxygen, many of our cells can extract energy from food efficiently. But this process of energy metabolism is not perfectly clean in an absolute sense. Under normal conditions, the body has evolved to live with this reality. It does not attempt to create a world entirely free of reactive molecules. Instead, it has developed systems capable of recognizing, regulating, neutralizing, and repairing their effects. Perhaps this is where the scientific story begins to touch something deeper. Carl Gustav Jung spent much of his life observing the paradoxes of the human psyche. He recognized that life does not operate like a room filled only with light or only with darkness. Within us, opposites constantly exist: consciousness and the unconscious, fear and desire, love and anger, order and chaos. Jung wrote, "Life is born only of the spark of opposites." This idea reflects his exploration of the tension between opposing forces and the role that such tension can play in creating movement, energy, and psychological transformation. It is fascinating to view the paradox of oxygen through this lens. Oxygen provides energy, yet it also creates a challenge. Life does not solve this paradox by abandoning oxygen. If it did, many complex forms of life as we know them would not exist. Instead, life learns to coexist with risk. It develops enzymes, protective molecules, mechanisms for repairing DNA, proteins, and lipids. It learns to transform an environment that can potentially cause damage into part of a larger system of signaling and adaptation. This is a very different lesson from the familiar belief that everything considered bad must be completely eliminated. In recent years, the scientific understanding of oxidative stress has become increasingly nuanced. A physiological level of oxidative signaling can play an important role in cellular communication, a concept sometimes described as oxidative eustress. On the other hand, when oxidative activity exceeds the body's capacity for regulation and protection, it may contribute to oxidative distress, increasing the risk of damage to biological molecules. So the story is not simply that fewer reactive molecules are always better. Like many living systems, what matters is context, intensity, duration, and the ability of the entire organism to respond. Try to think about this in the context of your own life. A certain amount of challenge can stimulate adaptation. Physical exercise creates temporary physiological stress, yet it can also activate adaptive responses. A small injury can trigger a process of repair. A difficult period in life may sometimes force us to look at things we had never previously noticed. This does not mean that all pain is good. And it certainly does not mean that the more suffering a person experiences, the more they will grow. That would be a dangerous romanticization of pain. But there is an important difference between a challenge that can be responded to and an overwhelming burden that exceeds our capacity to cope. The body understands this distinction very well. A cell does not attempt to defeat every chemical reaction. It continuously adjusts. It creates signals, receives signals, changes patterns of gene activity, activates enzymes, and initiates repair when necessary. Life does not stand still in a state of perfect balance. It is the ongoing process of maintaining balance while everything continues to move. Perhaps this is why free radicals are such an easily misunderstood concept. Their name sounds frightening. Free radical may make us imagine a lawless army wandering through the body and destroying everything in its path. But chemistry has no morality in the human sense. A molecule is not bad simply because it is reactive, and an antioxidant is not automatically good under every circumstance. Their meaning depends on the network of relationships in which they participate. This is part of the beauty of biology. No character truly exists alone. A molecule created in one place may become a signal somewhere else. An enzyme may function only under the right conditions. One protective substance may be regenerated by another. Damage may be repaired, but repair itself requires energy. Everything is connected within a network so complex that we have still only begun to understand it. And when we think about that network, we can return to one of the most important ideas in Jung's way of observing life. Opposites do not always need to be destroyed. Sometimes, the tension between them is what creates movement. Throughout his work, Jung explored the idea that the tension between opposing forces can become a source of energy and transformation. But this does not mean that we should seek extremes. On the contrary, balance may not mean the complete absence of opposing forces. It may mean having the capacity to prevent one side from completely taking over the entire system. Oxygen, in a strangely beautiful sense, is a perfect symbol of this paradox. We could not live as we do without it, and yet we must constantly regulate some of the consequences of using it. Life does not survive by eliminating all risk. It survives through the ability to manage risk. Perhaps that is why, in the quiet of this night, the story of a single oxygen atom can lead us toward a larger reflection about existence itself. So many things in life are like oxygen. A relationship can bring joy while also making us vulnerable. Success can create opportunity while also creating pressure. Knowledge can free us, Yet it can also force us to confront things we once never had to see. Perhaps maturity is not about finding a world without paradox. Perhaps it is about learning to recognize paradox when it appears. Inside your body at this very moment, this balance continues. Oxygen enters. Energy is produced. Some reactive molecules appear. Other systems detect them. Some are used as signals. Some are neutralized. Some damage is repaired. And the cycle continues without pause even while you sleep. There is something strangely comforting about realizing that the human body is not a perfect machine that never makes mistakes. It is a living system. A system constantly exposed to the possibility of damage. Yet at the same time, it carries within itself an extraordinary capacity for repair and recovery. And because oxygen can give rise to reactions like these, we now need to look more closely at what happens when the balance begins to shift. When reactions that once served as signals become too intense, when reactive molecules begin interacting with lipids, proteins, DNA, and other delicate structures within the cell. That is where we enter the next chapter of our journey. A story that is sometimes compared to something quite familiar. The body quietly rusting from within. When the body rusts from within, if oxygen is one of the greatest gifts life has received, then oxidation reminds us that every powerful gift comes with some kind of cost. But before we go any further, let us gently clarify something. The image of the body, rusting from within, is only a metaphor. The human body does not literally turn into a piece of iron slowly corroded by wind and rain. Yet between an iron nail gradually turning reddish-brown and the chemical reactions taking place inside our cells, there is an interesting similarity. Both involve changes in molecules through oxidation reactions. And just as rust develops slowly, many changes inside the body make no sound. They happen silently, on a scale so small that our ordinary senses can never detect them. Imagine a cell as a miniature city. It has protective walls, factories that help produce energy, transportation systems, storage facilities for raw materials, and even libraries that preserve information. Within this city, the cell membrane acts as a flexible boundary. Proteins perform countless tasks. DNA stores genetic information. Mitochondria help participate in the production of energy. Everything is built from delicate chemical structures. And like any city, this one is constantly exposed to influences from both within and beyond its borders. Reactive oxygen species can be produced during normal metabolism or increase under certain conditions. When properly controlled, they can participate in cellular signaling. But when the amount of these reactive molecules exceeds the body's capacity to regulate them, and its defense systems can no longer maintain balance, a state commonly called oxidative stress may occur. It is important to understand that oxidative stress is not an object you could hold in your hand. It is a state of dynamic imbalance. On one side are processes that generate oxidants or reactive molecules. On the other are the systems capable of neutralizing, controlling, or repairing their effects. When the scale tips too far, the risk of damage increases. One of the structures that can be affected is lipids, especially those found within cell membranes. Imagine the cell membrane as a soft, living sea surrounding a microscopic world. It is not simply a bag holding everything inside. It helps determine what enters and leaves the cell. It allows cells to communicate with their environment, and it helps maintain their structure. Some lipids can undergo chain reactions when they are oxidized, producing new substances that may alter the properties of the membrane and affect cellular activity. The important thing is that the body has mechanisms designed to control and repair these changes. But when damage exceeds the body's capacity to manage it, those alterations may accumulate. Then there are proteins, the tireless workers of the cell. Some proteins transport materials. Some provide structure. Others act as enzymes, helping chemical reactions take place. When the structure of a protein is altered through oxidation or related reactions, its function may also change. A key that has been bent may no longer fit into its lock as it once did. In a similar way, a modified protein may work less efficiently, behave differently, or be marked by the body for breakdown and replacement. But perhaps when people think about damage at the cellular level, they immediately think of DNA, the place where some of life's most important instructions are stored. DNA is not a book sitting motionless inside a locked room. It is constantly being read, copied, monitored, and repaired. Oxidative reactions can produce different forms of damage to DNA. But here we encounter something remarkable. The body is not helpless. We possess sophisticated DNA repair mechanisms capable of recognizing and responding to certain forms of damage. So the story is not that every injury leads to disaster. Life evolved in a changing world, and it carries with it extraordinary capacities for repair. This is where the story becomes deeper. The body is not a perfect object that must remain unchanged forever. It is a process. Every day, changes take place. Some molecules are damaged, some are repaired, some are replaced, some cells die, while others appear. We often imagine that health means a state in which absolutely nothing ever goes wrong. But perhaps a more accurate way to understand health is as the capacity to maintain function and adapt amid countless changes that never stop. If we look at this through a reflective lens inspired by Carl Gustav Jung, we may recognize something very familiar. Human beings often want to believe that somewhere inside us there should be a state of perfection, a state without fear, without wounds, without contradictions, without any part that needs repair. But Jung devoted his life to exploring a psyche that is constantly moving between opposites. A quotation often attributed to him is, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." However, there is no reliable evidence that this sentence appears in this exact form in Jung's published works. And so, when speaking about Jung, we should be careful with beautiful quotations that cannot be verified. Perhaps that same caution is appropriate for our subject tonight. The body and the mind are both more complicated than simple slogans. Oxidation does not automatically mean that the body is being destroyed. Eating a food containing antioxidants does not mean that all damage will suddenly disappear. Seeing a chemical marker change does not mean that we understand the entire story. Biology is a network. Perhaps the most thought-provoking thing about oxidative stress is that it shows us how damage and recovery can exist at the same time. The body creates reactive molecules, but it also creates enzymes to help control them. Molecules may be altered, but repair systems can begin their work. DNA may experience damage, but it is also monitored and restored through multiple mechanisms. Life does not wait until every danger has disappeared before it begins to heal. It heals while the world continues to change. Think of it as a garden at night. Leaves may be eaten by insects. A branch may break in the wind. Rain may wash away part of the soil. But the garden does not stop because of these things. Roots continue drawing water. New shoots continue to emerge. Old leaves fall away, making room for another cycle. Life is not permanence. Life is the ability to continually reorganize itself. Oxidative stress becomes especially important when the pressure created by reactive molecules is prolonged or becomes too intense for the body's regulatory systems to manage. Many factors can influence this balance, from normal metabolism and environmental conditions to diet, sleep, physical activity, exposure to certain harmful substances, and various states of disease. But we should also avoid reducing every health problem to the phrase, "It is caused by free radicals." That would be far too simple. Complex diseases often involve many factors: genetics, the immune system, the environment, behavior, age, and countless other biological processes. Oxidative processes may be one part of a much larger story, but they are rarely the entire story. And perhaps this is the first lesson we can carry with us from the world of the cell. Do not place too much faith in explanations that offer only one cause and one solution. The body does not function like a switch. It is more like an orchestra with thousands of instruments. A single note may change and influence the entire composition, but that does not mean one instrument alone is responsible for the whole symphony. In the silence of the night, perhaps there is something comforting about knowing that your body is constantly performing work that you never have to witness. Small forms of damage may be recognized. Molecules that are no longer needed may be removed. New structures may be built. At its deepest level, life is not a motionless state. It is an endless conversation between breakdown and renewal. And that is why we now need to meet the silent guardians of this story. If reactive molecules can begin chain reactions, what helps a cell prevent those reactions from spreading? How can an antioxidant participate in stabilizing a reactive molecule? Why does the body not rely on a single protective substance, but instead on an entire network working together? To find the answer, we must take another step into the invisible world of chemistry, a place where tiny molecules quietly perform a task that sounds simple, yet is extraordinarily delicate, helping life maintain its own balance. How do antioxidants work? After seeing how oxidation reactions can quietly unfold inside the cell, a natural question begins to arise. If one reactive molecule can alter another, and that alteration can trigger further reactions, what prevents the entire process from spreading endlessly? What keeps the chemical world inside the body from becoming an uncontrolled chain reaction? The answer is not a single hero. It is an intricate network of protective, repair, and regulatory mechanisms. And antioxidants are an important part of that network. To understand this, imagine a chain reaction as a row of dominoes. One domino falls, striking the next, which then knocks down another. In certain oxidative processes, especially those involving lipids, free radicals can participate in similar chain reactions. One altered molecule may generate another reactive molecule, and the process can continue spreading unless something interrupts or controls it. Antioxidants can participate in this process in several different ways. Some molecules can donate or accept electrons under appropriate chemical conditions, helping reactive molecules become more stable and less likely to continue attacking other structures. Other systems help break down reactive oxygen species into less reactive substances. Still others repair or remove molecules that have already been damaged. The important thing is that we should not imagine every antioxidant working through exactly the same mechanism. This is not an army made up of millions of identical soldiers. It is more like a city containing firefighters, engineers, doctors, sanitation workers, and alarm systems, each with a different task, yet all contributing to the maintenance of order. A simple example can be found in the cell membrane. Cell membranes contain many lipids, and some of these lipids can participate in oxidative chain reactions. If such a reaction continues, neighboring molecules may also be affected. Certain antioxidants, such as vitamin E in fat-rich environments, can help terminate or reduce the spread of some chain reactions under particular conditions. Then, within the larger network, other substances may help regenerate or support the systems involved in protection. And that word network may be the most important word of all. When we hear that a particular fruit is rich in antioxidants, we may imagine those molecules entering the body and immediately rushing around in search of every free radical to destroy. But the human body does not operate like a science fiction movie. After we eat food, its compounds must be digested, absorbed, metabolized, and distributed. Many plant compounds are transformed into other substances before they interact with the body's systems. This means that antioxidant activity measured in a laboratory experiment does not necessarily tell us exactly what will happen inside a living, complex human body. But this does not make the story less fascinating. It makes it more fascinating. because it reveals that the body's protection does not depend on one magical solution. It emerges from the coordination of countless processes. The body contains enzymes such as superoxide dismutase, catalase, and systems connected to glutathione. These names may sound unfamiliar, but you can imagine them as highly specialized workers, shaped through millions of years of evolution to handle certain byproducts and reactive molecules. Food provides nutrients and a wide variety of compounds. But the body also possesses an extraordinary ability to organize and protect itself. And if we look closely, this reveals something beautiful about life. Balance is not created by the strongest force. It is created by the coordination of many different forces. Perhaps this is also where we can find a subtle connection with the way Carl Gustav Jung reflected on human beings. Jung did not view the psyche as a machine that simply needed to eliminate everything unpleasant in order to become healthy. In analytical psychology, what is pushed into the darkness of the unconscious does not necessarily disappear. It may continue influencing conscious life in ways we do not immediately recognize. The path toward maturity, in the spirit of Jung's thought, is not simply about defeating one part of ourselves. It is about recognizing, confronting, and seeking a greater sense of wholeness among the parts that may appear to be in conflict. This gives us an interesting way to think about antioxidants. They do not defeat every oxidative reaction. In fact, the body still needs certain oxidative reactions and reactive molecules for normal biological signaling. If we attempted to eliminate all of them, we might simply create another form of imbalance. The goal is not a world completely free of oxidation. The goal is balance. And in biology, balance is not stillness. A person standing upright on the floor may appear perfectly still, but in reality, the body is constantly making tiny adjustments through muscles, posture, pressure, and position to avoid falling. Biological balance works in a similar way. It is dynamic. Reactions continuously arise. Protective mechanisms continuously respond. Small amounts of damage are repaired. Altered molecules are removed or recycled. There is almost never a moment when the body is completely free from change. Perhaps that is why advertisements promising to completely eliminate toxins and free radicals can sound appealing while missing the deeper nature of life. The body does not need a total purge. It needs regulation. Let us return once more to the image of the falling dominoes. If a chain reaction begins, the body has multiple ways to intervene. An antioxidant may help interrupt the reaction. An enzyme may convert one reactive molecule into another, less reactive form. A repair system may deal with the consequences afterward. A damaged molecule may be broken down and replaced. What is remarkable is that many of these layers of protection can operate at the same time. That is why we should not think of antioxidants as being found only in a blueberry, a cup of green tea, or a vitamin supplement. Antioxidants are a much broader concept. They include molecules produced by the body itself, enzymes that depend on nutrients, and numerous compounds that come from food. Some may participate directly in chemical reactions. Others may influence signaling systems that encourage the body to strengthen its own defenses. And this brings us to a particularly important idea. Sometimes the most valuable thing is not a compound that directly sweeps away reactive molecules. Sometimes it is a signal that helps the body adjust and strengthen its own protective mechanisms. Imagine a city facing the threat of fire. One approach would be to send more people to extinguish each fire individually. Another would be to build systems that detect fires earlier, create better fire-resistant materials, train firefighters, and design safer escape routes. The body often does something closer to the second approach, at a level of complexity almost beyond imagination. And this brings us back to a deeper reflection on human life. We, too, often search for one solution that can immediately solve everything. One pill for fatigue, one method for anxiety, one answer for every contradiction we carry. But nature seems to tell us a different story. The most resilient systems rarely survive because of one perfect solution. They survive because they can adapt, in an interpretation that resonates with the spirit of Jung's thought. Maturity is not about becoming a person without darkness. It is about learning to recognize what is happening within us, so that unconscious forces do not quietly direct our lives without our awareness. In a similar way, a healthy biological system is not one that never experiences oxidative pressure. It is a system capable of recognizing, responding, repairing, and adjusting. There is something peaceful about realizing this. Right now, you do not need to know the name of every enzyme for those enzymes to work. You do not need to understand every chemical reaction for your body to begin repairing itself. Trillions of cells continue their work, each one like a small room inside an immense city. And within that city, there is no single king controlling everything. There are countless networks, signals, and mechanisms working together. Antioxidants, then, are not magic. They are part of the art of balance that life has learned over time. And once we understand that protection does not come from one solitary warrior, but from an entire system, we naturally begin to wonder who those quiet protectors are. Who stands on the front line? What does glutathione actually do? Which enzymes help control reactive oxygen species? Where do vitamins and minerals fit into this vast network? That will be the next doorway in our journey. Because behind the simple idea of antioxidants exists an entire silent defense network, working inside your body long before you ever knew its name. The body's silent defense network. If, in the previous part, we imagined antioxidants as agents capable of slowing or interrupting a chain reaction, now let us go a little deeper into the invisible world inside the body. There, no single hero stands alone between darkness and danger. There is no miraculous vitamin capable of protecting everything by itself. Instead, there is a vast and intricate network, shaped through millions of years of evolution. Glutathione, antioxidant enzymes, vitamins, minerals, and countless mechanisms that support one another. If we imagine the body as an enormous city that never stops functioning, these are its firefighters, repair workers, transport systems, warning signals, and quiet architects working together to prevent the city from slipping into chaos. One of the names most often mentioned in this world is glutathione. Glutathione is a small molecule, yet it occupies an important place in many processes related to cellular protection and the balance between oxidation and reduction. It is made from 3 amino acids and exists in many cells throughout the body. But what makes it remarkable is not its size or its relatively simple structure. Its importance lies in its ability to participate in chemical reactions that help cells process certain reactive molecules and maintain balance within the cellular environment. We might imagine glutathione as a worker inside a factory where the lights never go out. Chemical reactions take place. Reactive molecules appear. Structures need protection. Glutathione may participate directly or work together with specialized enzymes to help manage these situations. After completing part of its work, it can enter an oxidized state and, under appropriate conditions, be regenerated by cellular systems, and so, a continuous cycle unfolds. There is something beautiful about this idea of regeneration. Protection is not something that happens only once. There is no morning when the body announces that every danger has been permanently eliminated. Life is a continuous process of repair. One molecule is restored. One structure is replaced. One system is adjusted. And tomorrow, the process begins again. Alongside glutathione are the antioxidant enzyme specialists capable of performing chemical reactions with astonishing precision. One of them is superoxide dismutase, often abbreviated as SOD. This enzyme participates in the conversion of superoxide, a reactive molecule, that can arise during metabolism into hydrogen peroxide. At first, this may sound strange. Why transform one reactive substance into another substance that can also participate in chemical reactions? But this reveals something important. Biological systems are not simply about destroying the bad things. Sometimes, in order to manage one molecule, the body must guide it through several different steps. Afterward, enzymes such as catalase and glutathione peroxidase can participate in the processing of hydrogen peroxide. Each enzyme has its own role, environment, and operating conditions. Not every cell uses every system in exactly the same way. Not every reaction takes place in the same location. But when we look at the larger picture, they form a multi-layered network of protection. And there is one important principle to remember. One layer of protection can support another. In everyday life, we often search for the strongest thing. We want to know which food is best, which vitamin is best, which method is most effective. But biology rarely gives us a single name. A healthy system often depends on diversity and coordination. Vitamin C and vitamin E provide a familiar example. Vitamin C is water-soluble and functions in different environments from vitamin E, which is fat-soluble. This means they are not simply competing to become the number one antioxidant. They operate in different chemical contexts and can participate in complex networks of support. Under certain biological conditions, vitamin C may also contribute to the regeneration of vitamin E. The body, therefore, is more like an orchestra than a competition. Not every instrument produces the same sound. A violin does not try to become a drum. A flute does not compete with a piano. Each instrument appears at a different moment, occupies a different space, and contributes a different layer of sound. And it is the coordination of these differences that creates the complete music. Minerals also play important roles in this biological orchestra. Some enzymes require trace elements as supporting components in order to perform their functions. For example, selenium is associated with the activity of certain glutathione peroxidases, while zinc and copper are associated with certain forms of superoxide dismutase. But this does not mean that taking more and more minerals will automatically make the system work better. Biology rarely follows rules that simple. The body is a system of thresholds, proportions, and regulation. Too little can create problems, but too much can also disturb the balance. A substance that is necessary in a small amount does not automatically become more beneficial when the amount is increased tenfold. This is one of the reasons nutritional science is far more complicated than advertising slogans. The body is not an empty container that simply needs to be continuously filled. It is a living system that regulates, absorbs, stores, uses, and eliminates. Perhaps here we can see an image that resonates with the spirit of Carl Gustav Jung. Jung devoted much of his life to exploring the idea of wholeness. He was interested in how human beings become more complete, not by eliminating every unwanted part of themselves, but through the process of becoming aware of and integrating the different parts of the psyche. In psychological life, a person cannot exist through only one emotion. Joy exists alongside an understanding of sorrow. Consciousness exists alongside the unconscious. Light becomes more meaningful when we recognize that darkness is also part of life. The body is similar. Life does not attempt to create a world completely free of oxidative reactions. A certain level of reactive molecules can still play roles in cellular signaling, immune activity, and adaptation. The important thing is not to eliminate everything. It is to maintain the ability to regulate. A system that is too weak cannot respond. A system that loses control can contribute to damage. Health, in one sense, is the art of balance. That is why the defense army inside the body should not be imagined as a group of warriors whose only purpose is destruction. They are also observers, coordinators, and repairers. Some systems detect changes in the cellular environment and activate genes related to defense. Some enzymes repair or help remove damaged structures. Some molecules act as signals, informing cells that their environment is changing. Some nutrients from food provide the raw materials that allow these processes to continue, and every day, without fully realizing it, we become part of this conversation. Every meal brings different materials. Every period of sleep provides opportunities for the body to continue processes of restoration and regulation. Every moment of physical activity creates a particular form of challenge while also potentially triggering adaptive responses. Every period of stress, every moment of rest, and every change in the environment becomes part of the complex dialogue between the body and the world. What is remarkable is that you do not need to consciously control all of this. At this very moment, as you listen to these words, trillions of cells continue performing their individual tasks. Inside spaces too small for the naked eye to see, chemical reactions are taking place at extraordinary speed. Some molecules are being created, some are being broken down, some are being recycled, some enzymes are working, some systems are waiting quietly until the appropriate signal appears. And perhaps one of the most peaceful realizations is this: life is not perfect in the way we often imagine. It is not perfectly clean. It is not unchanging. It cannot avoid every form of damage, but it can respond. It can repair. It can adapt through evolution, and within its very vulnerability, life has built systems of protection of extraordinary complexity. Glutathione, enzymes, vitamins, and minerals are not isolated jewels scattered throughout the body. They are parts of a larger story, a story of cooperation. One substance may support an enzyme may require a mineral, a system requires energy. A repair process requires raw materials. One cell must communicate with another. None of them truly exists alone. And perhaps that is the gentlest lesson this silent defense network can offer us. Before the night grows deeper, strength does not always come from one extraordinary individual. Sometimes, strength is created by countless small things quietly supporting one another. A tiny molecule helps sustain a reaction. An enzyme completes its task. A mineral becomes a necessary piece of the puzzle. A vitamin participates in a complex network. A cell repairs a small injury. And then the entire body continues moving through time. When we look into this invisible world, perhaps we begin to trust a little less in promises of a single, super antioxidant capable of solving everything. Instead, we begin to understand the beauty of diversity. Not one savior, not one miracle, but an entire ecosystem existing within us. In the next part, we will meet some more familiar names, vitamin C and vitamin E, and explore how water-soluble and fat-soluble protectors can operate in different environments, and why true strength sometimes depends not on how powerful one substance is alone, but on how many different elements are able to work together. But for now, let your body continue the remarkable work it has always been doing. In the silence of the night, as your conscious thoughts begin to slow and the outside world feels more distant, there is still a quiet defense network within you. It does not need applause. It does not need to be called by name. And without making a sound, it continues protecting the delicate balance we call life. Vitamin C, vitamin E, and the cooperation of the body's protectors. After journeying through the world of glutathione, enzymes, and the silent defense networks within the body, we begin to understand that life is rarely protected by a single force. Every system has its own place. Every molecule appears in its own environment, and sometimes, the most remarkable thing is not the power of each individual component, but their ability to find one another, support one another, and continue work that would be difficult to accomplish alone. Vitamin C and vitamin E offer a beautiful example of this kind of cooperation. These are two names we know well. They appear on food labels, in conversations about nutrition, in advertisements about health, and in countless pieces of advice passed from one person to another. But behind these familiar names lies a far more subtle story. Vitamin C and vitamin E are not the same. They do not travel along the same pathways. They do not work in exactly the same environments. And yet, it is precisely these differences that can allow them to become complementary pieces within the body's broader antioxidant network. Vitamin C, also known as ascorbic acid, is a water-soluble vitamin. This means it functions primarily in watery environments, such as fluids, inside and outside cells. The human body cannot produce vitamin C in sufficient amounts the way some other animals can, so we must obtain it through our diet. Fruits and vegetables are familiar sources, but the interesting part is not simply which foods contain vitamin C. What is more fascinating is its place within a much larger biological network. Vitamin E tells a different story. It is a group of fat-soluble compounds, with alpha-tocopherol being one of the forms the human body preferentially maintains. Because of its relationship with lipids, vitamin E can be present in fat-rich environments, especially within cell membranes. And this matters greatly, because a cell membrane is not merely a protective wrapper, it is a living boundary through which cells communicate with their surroundings, receive signals, control exchange, and preserve their structure. If vitamin C is like someone working within the tiny rivers and streams of the body, vitamin E is like a guardian standing along walls rich in lipids. They do not occupy the same position, they do not see the same world. But because of that, they may help protect different territories. Imagine the body as a vast city. Within this city are rivers, reservoirs, roads, bridges, and walls. You would not build defenses only along the streets while forgetting the bridges, nor would you protect the water supply while ignoring the walls surrounding the city. A truly effective system understands that different challenges appear in different places. Vitamin C and vitamin E are similar in this respect. In certain oxidative reactions involving lipids, vitamin E can participate in limiting the spread of chain reactions. After a vitamin E molecule takes part in such a process, it may enter a different oxidized state. Under certain biological conditions, vitamin C can contribute to the regeneration of an active form of vitamin E. This is one of the classic examples used to illustrate an important idea. Antioxidants do not necessarily work alone. One participant can help another continue its work. One system can support the recovery of another. One molecule can become a bridge between two different chemical worlds. And perhaps this is where science begins to touch a deeper reflection about life itself. We are often taught to see independence as a sign of strength. We want to become people who can solve every problem alone, endure every difficulty alone, and stand against the world without needing anyone else. But nature seems to tell a different story. Inside the body, almost nothing exists in complete isolation. Every system depends upon another system. Every process requires a chain of conditions. Every cell, even though it may appear to be a world of its own, is constantly communicating with other cells. Life is not perfect independence. Life is connection. Through a perspective inspired by Carl Gustav Jung, we might see here an interesting symbol of wholeness. Jung was deeply concerned with the process through which a person becomes a more integrated individual. Yet wholeness does not mean preserving only one side of oneself. A mature person is not someone made entirely of reason and no emotion, entirely of strength and no vulnerability, entirely of light and no shadow. Wholeness emerges when different parts of the psyche are recognized and allowed to find their place. Vitamin C and vitamin E offer a similar image. One is water-soluble. One is fat-soluble. One is more active in one environment, while the other operates in another. They do not need to become identical in order to support one another. They do not need to compete in order to coexist. Perhaps this is one of the gentlest lessons biology can offer us. Difference does not necessarily create division. Sometimes, difference is precisely what makes cooperation possible. However, when we talk about vitamin C and vitamin E, We should also avoid a common misunderstanding. The fact that these vitamins participate in antioxidant networks does not mean that taking more and more of them will automatically make the body healthier. Biology does not operate according to the rule, double the dose, double the benefit. A substance that is useful in one context may not produce the same result in another. The body must absorb, transport, metabolize, regulate, and sometimes eliminate each compound. Dosage, chemical form, nutritional status, and individual differences can all influence the outcome. That is why an orange is not simply a natural vitamin C pill, just as a handful of nuts is not merely a dose of vitamin E. Food is a complex structure. It contains fiber, water, minerals, and countless other biologically active compounds. When we eat a food, we are not simply introducing one isolated molecule into the body. We are receiving a small part of an entire natural ecosystem. And this makes the colors on our plates even more beautiful. The deep red of berries, the orange of fruits and vegetables, the rich green of leafy plants, the golden colors of seeds and grains. Every shade is more than something beautiful for the eye to see. Behind these colors are millions of years of evolution, countless strategies for survival, and chemical compounds shaped through the long conversation between life and its environment. But let us return to our two main characters. Vitamin C and vitamin E are not invincible bodyguards. They are simply two participants in a network far larger than themselves. They interact with glutathione, enzymes, minerals, cellular repair systems, and countless other biological processes. If we remove one factor from the entire system and examine it as though it were the whole story, we can easily exaggerate or misunderstand its importance. This is also a familiar lesson in Jung's way of thinking. A human being cannot be understood through one isolated fragment. You cannot understand an entire life through a single painful memory. You cannot understand a person through one emotion experienced on one particular day. The psyche is a living network of consciousness, unconsciousness, memory, symbols, experience, and relationships. The body is much the same. A healthy cell does not depend on one vitamin. A healthy body does not depend on one food. A balanced life does not depend on one decision. Everything is a network. And the more we understand these networks, the less easily we are captivated by promises that are too simple. There is no single fruit that can protect us from every form of damage. There is no single pill that can replace the complexity of nutrition, sleep, movement, environment, and the countless biological systems developed through evolution. But this does not make the story disappointing. On the contrary, it makes life even more extraordinary. Instead of discovering one miracle, we discover millions of small miracles happening at the same time. A molecule of vitamin C moving through cellular fluid, a molecule of vitamin E resting within a lipid-rich membrane, an enzyme performing its particular reaction, a mineral supporting the structure or function of that enzyme, a repair system responding to minor damage, one cell sending a signal to another, and together, all of these processes form a living body. Perhaps, as you lie quietly in the darkness and prepare to drift towards sleep, there is a special kind of peace in realizing this. You do not need to control every reaction. You do not need to stay awake and tell your body when to begin repairing itself. You do not need to memorize the names of every enzyme for them to continue working. Your body learned how to care for itself long before human beings began to understand biology. That does not mean we should stop caring for it. On the contrary, understanding should make us more humble in the way we treat our bodies. Instead of constantly searching for the one most powerful thing, perhaps we can learn to appreciate diversity. Instead of asking, "What should I take more of?" Perhaps a better question is, how am I creating the conditions that allow the entire system to function in harmony? And that is the beauty of vitamin C and vitamin E. They do not need to become each other. Vitamin C does not need to dissolve in fat to prove its value. Vitamin E does not need to dissolve in water to become important. Each finds its own place in its own world, And under the right conditions, those differences become a source of cooperation. Perhaps human beings can learn something from this as well. We do not need to be the same in order to support one another. We do not need to stand in the same place in order to help build something good. We do not need to become everything by ourselves. In nature, life is sustained through forms of cooperation that the human eye can rarely see. And in the next part of our journey, we will travel deeper into an even more remarkable place. The mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside our cells. It is there that energy is generated to help sustain life. And it is also there that reactive molecules can arise. It is a profound paradox. The place where strength is created is also a place that requires protection. And perhaps, in its own way, that is a very human story. Sometimes the very place from which we draw the greatest energy is also the place that requires the greatest balance. So tonight, as your eyes slowly begin to close, imagine a vast world inside your body. Tiny rivers, cell membranes, enzymes, vitamins, signals moving quietly from one place to another. Vitamin C in one environment, vitamin E in another, different in their nature, yet belonging to the same larger story, the story of cooperation. And perhaps the gentlest lesson of all is this: life is not protected by the perfection of a single individual, but by the ability of different things to find one another, support one another, and together preserve a balance that is fragile, yet truly miraculous. Mitochondria, and the place where energy also creates risk. If vitamin C and vitamin E have shown us that life is protected through cooperation between different elements, then now we can travel even deeper into a tiny world that exists inside nearly every cell of the body. It is a place where one of life's most remarkable processes takes place, transforming energy from food and oxygen into a form of energy that cells can use. These tiny structures are called mitochondria. Mitochondria are often called the powerhouses of the cell. The phrase is simple, easy to understand, and partly accurate. But if we stop there, we miss a much deeper story. Mitochondria are not merely factories, they are traces of an ancient evolutionary history, centers of many metabolic processes, producers of much of the ATP required for cellular activity, and at the same time, among the places where oxygen-related reactive molecules can be generated. Strange, isn't it? The very place that helps sustain life can also create challenges that need to be controlled. And perhaps this is one of the most beautiful paradoxes in biology. Energy and risk often emerge from the same process. Imagine a city at night. Power plants illuminate millions of homes, but to create that light, those plants must operate powerful processes, consume fuel, generate heat, and rely on carefully controlled systems. Energy does not simply appear from nowhere. Every process that creates power comes with conditions that must be managed. Mitochondria are similar. Inside them are intricately folded membranes. Here, an electron transport chain operates, using energy derived from nutrients to build a difference in proton concentration across a membrane. Then, a molecular system called ATP synthase uses that difference to produce ATP, a molecule often described as the cell's energy currency. It may sound like a machine, but in reality, it is a living machine. There are no steel gears, no electrical wires, no roaring engines. Instead, there are proteins, biological membranes, ions, electrons, and chemical interactions taking place in spaces far too small for the naked eye to see. Every time you walk, your heart beats, your eyes see, your brain thinks, or your body quietly maintains its temperature. Countless mitochondria participate in networks that help supply energy to your cells. But within this process of electron transport, a small fraction of electrons may participate in reactions that generate reactive oxygen species. This does not mean that mitochondria are toxic factories inside the body. It is part of normal biology. In many situations, reactive molecules produced in small amounts can participate in cellular signaling and adaptive processes. The issue is generally not their mere existence, but their level, location, and the body's ability to control them. Once again, we encounter an important word: balance. The body is not designed to eliminate every reactive molecule completely. A biological world entirely free from oxidation is neither a realistic nor necessarily desirable goal. Life uses powerful chemical reactions to generate energy, transmit signals, and respond to its environment. But when the production of reactive molecules exceeds the ability of the system to control, neutralize, or repair their effects, the risk of damage can increase. That is what makes mitochondria such a remarkable place. They are both a source of energy and something that must itself be protected. To protect mitochondria, the body relies on multiple layers of defense: antioxidant enzymes, glutathione, repair systems, protein quality control, and processes that remove damaged mitochondrial components. In some situations, cells can even recycle components that are no longer functioning efficiently through complex mechanisms of autophagy. There is something beautiful about this idea. Life does not merely know how to create, it also knows how to inspect, repair, and sometimes let go of what no longer works. Perhaps this is where the thought of Carl Gustav Jung opens another door for reflection. Jung was deeply interested in the paradoxes of the human psyche. We often want to divide the world into clear opposites: good and bad, light and darkness, safety and danger. But real life is rarely that simple. Equality can be a strength in one situation and create difficulties in another. A powerful source of energy can help us move forward, yet when it is not regulated, that same energy can push us toward exhaustion. Mitochondria offer a biological image of that paradox. The place that creates energy is also a place that requires control. The place where powerful reactions occur also requires sophisticated protective mechanisms. This may lead us to think about our own lives. The things that make us feel most alive can sometimes be the very things that require us to learn balance. Work can bring meaning, but relentless work can drain us. Love can open the heart, but love without boundaries can become dependency. Ambition can inspire creativity, but ambition without regulation can become self-destructive. Not all energy is dangerous, but energy without regulation always deserves attention. That is why the body does not simply produce ATP and ignore everything else. Mitochondria constantly communicate with the rest of the cell. They respond to energy status, nutrient availability, and changes in the environment. The cell is not entirely passive toward them either. It can regulate the creation of new mitochondria, repair damaged components, and remove certain structures that are no longer functioning normally. Mitochondria, therefore, are not fixed batteries. They are part of a dynamic world. In some cells, mitochondria can change shape, fuse together, or divide apart. They can form networks that continuously change according to the needs of life. This image is very different from that of a stationary factory. Perhaps it is more accurate to imagine them as systems of energy rivers, constantly connecting, separating, and adapting. And remarkably, mitochondria carry within them an ancient story. According to the widely accepted theory of endosymbiosis, the ancestors of mitochondria were once independent bacteria. Billions of years ago, an ancient cell formed an internal symbiotic relationship with a bacterium capable of using oxygen efficiently to harvest energy. Rather than being completely digested, the tiny organism gradually became part of the host cell. Over a vast evolutionary history, the relationship became so deeply integrated that today it is difficult to imagine modern eukaryotic cells without mitochondria. Perhaps this is one of evolution's most beautiful stories. An organism that once lived independently became an essential part of another. Long-term cooperation created a new form of life. Difference did not disappear. It became integrated into something larger. There is an interesting resonance here with Jung's idea of individuation, the process of becoming oneself through recognizing and integrating different aspects of the psyche. Of course, a psychological process should not be confused with a biological event. Yet, as a symbol, the story of mitochondria still invites an intriguing thought. Sometimes growth does not come from eliminating everything that is different, but from discovering how different elements can exist within a greater whole. Mitochondria also remind us that strength must always be accompanied by care. The brain consumes a tremendous amount of energy. Muscles require energy to move. The heart requires energy to beat without rest. And for all of these things to continue, the tiny powerhouses inside our cells must keep working. Perhaps that is why the body does not treat energy as a free gift. Every form of energy passes through complex processes. Every activity requires conditions. Every system has limits. In a world that constantly urges us to become faster, stronger, and more productive, mitochondria offer an almost opposite lesson. The ability to create energy cannot be separated from the ability to manage the consequences of creating it. We admire fire because of its light, but fire is useful only when it is held within appropriate boundaries. Oxygen is much the same. It helps keep the metabolic flame of life burning. But precisely because it is so powerful, the body must build an entire world of defenses around its use. That is not a failure of life. It is the wisdom of life. A mature system is not one that never encounters risk. It is one that recognizes that risk exists and develops ways to adapt to it. Perhaps this is also a fitting thought for the hours before sleep. We often imagine that when we lie down, the body completely stops working. But sleep is not the disappearance of life. It is a different state. Many processes of regulation, restoration, and organization continue while our conscious awareness retreats into darkness. And while you sleep, mitochondria remain present inside your living cells. There is no sound, no light that your eyes can see, no sign on the surface of your skin that billions of reactions continue. But inside, life is still moving. An electron travels. A gradient is formed. ATP is produced. A reactive molecule appears. An enzyme joins the process. A structure is repaired. A component that no longer functions efficiently is marked for recycling. And then, the cycle continues. Mitochondria show us that life is not a state of complete stillness. Even in the deepest quiet, there are movements we cannot see. Even when the body rests, balance remains the result of countless forms of activity. And perhaps, when viewed with gentler eyes, there is nothing frightening about that. On the contrary, it can bring peace, because we do not have to control everything ourselves. Within each of us exists a biological intelligence far older than our conscious awareness. It knows how to transform food into energy. It knows how to detect change. It knows how to activate multiple layers of defense. It is not perfect, but it is constantly adapting. And perhaps the final lesson from these tiny powerhouses is this: the things that give us strength also need to be cared for. The things that allow us to shine also need to exist within balance. And sometimes, wisdom does not lie in creating more energy, but in knowing how to protect the source of energy that quietly sustains the life within us. In the next part, we will enter another paradox that is even more fascinating. Oxidative stress is not always the enemy. A moderate amount of challenge can sometimes become a signal that encourages the body to adapt, activate its protective systems, and become more resilient. Because life, like human beings, does not always grow in absolute safety. It grows when it learns how to respond to challenges without losing its balance. Oxidative stress is not always bad. When we hear the phrase oxidative stress, most of us immediately think of something dangerous. We imagine silent damage, cells under attack, and unstable molecules moving through the body like tiny sparks that could ignite a fire. But the world inside the human body is rarely simple enough to divide everything into good or bad. And perhaps, if we look more deeply, we may discover that a certain amount of stress is not always the enemy of life. Sometimes, stress itself can become a quiet teacher, helping a system grow stronger. Imagine someone who never has to use their muscles. If they remained still throughout their entire life, never lifting anything heavy, never walking quickly, running, or climbing uphill, their body would have little reason to become stronger. Muscles have a reason to adapt when they encounter a challenge. After a workout, cells experience small changes. Energy demand increases. Metabolism becomes more active. Reactive molecules, including those collectively known as reactive oxygen species, may also increase. But if the challenge remains within a range the body can manage, something remarkable happens. The body does not simply endure it. The body learns how to prepare better for the next time. This is one of the most beautiful paradoxes of biology. A small amount of stress can become a signal for adaptation. In science, the concept of hormesis is often used to describe the phenomenon in which an agent, at a low or moderate level, may trigger beneficial adaptive responses, while at excessive levels, it can become harmful. This does not mean that all stress is good, or that more stress automatically makes us stronger. Quite the opposite. A small fire can help us cook food, but an uncontrolled fire can destroy an entire house. The difference lies not only in the nature of the fire, but also in its intensity, duration, and our ability to control it. The body operates according to similarly delicate principles. When we exercise, especially at an appropriate intensity, the body does more than simply consume energy. It receives a message. In simple terms, that message might say, prepare better. Repair systems may be activated. Some protective enzymes may increase their activity. Mitochondria, the structures that help produce energy within cells, may adapt to new demands. Muscles gradually become more efficient. The circulatory system learns to respond. What begins as a small challenge can become an invitation for the body to develop. This is part of what makes life so remarkable. The body is not a fragile object that can survive only when protected from every disturbance. It is a system shaped through millions of years of evolution in a constantly changing world. Our ancestors did not live in rooms with perfect temperatures. They walked, ran, searched for food, and faced hunger, cold, heat, and countless environmental challenges. Life did not develop by avoiding every challenge completely. It developed through the ability to recognize challenges, respond to them, and then change in order to adapt. Perhaps this is also where we can find an interesting parallel with reflections on the human mind. Carl Gustav Jung spent much of his life exploring the darker regions of the psyche. He did not see darkness simply as something that must be destroyed. In Jungian analytical psychology, growth is not merely about running away from the uncomfortable parts of ourselves. It also involves recognizing, confronting, and gradually integrating what we may once have wanted to deny. That does not mean suffering automatically makes a person better. Just as in biology, not every form of stress creates strength. Some forms of trauma are overwhelming and can leave a person exhausted. Some wounds need protection, healing, and rest. But a manageable challenge, within a safe environment, can sometimes help us discover abilities we never knew we possessed. The body seems to understand this in its own way. Think about the immune system. It cannot develop simply by existing in complete isolation from every signal in the outside world. It must recognize, respond, remember, and adjust. Oxidative reactions are also part of the complex processes the body uses for defense and communication at the cellular level. Reactive molecules are not always destructive intruders. Under certain conditions, they can also participate in signaling, helping cells recognize that something is changing and that an appropriate response may be needed. What is remarkable is that a healthy body is not a body completely free of free radicals. That would hardly fit the way life actually works. A healthier system may be better described as one that maintains balance, producing what is needed when necessary, controlling what must be controlled, and repairing what needs repair. That is the most important word: balance. We are often attracted to simple promises. Eliminate all free radicals. Destroy all oxidative stress. Protect the body from every form of damage. But nature does not seem to operate through words like completely. Life is a continuous negotiation between opposing forces. Oxygen provides energy, but it can also create risk. The immune system protects us, but excessive immune responses can also cause damage. Exercise temporarily tires the body, yet it can promote long-term adaptation. Rest supports recovery. But a completely inactive life does not necessarily create health. Everything depends on degree. Sometimes, what the body needs is not a perfectly sealed fortress, but the ability to respond flexibly. A tree branch that has never encountered wind may never learn to withstand stronger storms. A system that is never challenged may never learn how to activate the protective mechanisms that already exist quietly within it. But we must remember that adaptation takes time. After challenge comes recovery. After movement comes rest. After intense activity comes sleep. This is an important part of the story that we often forget. We admire effort, but sometimes underestimate recovery. In reality, the body does not become stronger only during the moment of stress. Many processes of repair and adaptation take place afterward, when we allow the system enough time to restore itself. Perhaps this is why sleep has such a special place in this story. When night arrives, you are no longer running, working, or responding to hundreds of signals from the outside world. Yet inside you, life continues. Complex systems continue to regulate themselves. Processes of recovery continue quietly. The body does not stop simply because consciousness has entered sleep. And perhaps, in this very moment, as you listen to stories about the invisible world within you, there is something worth reflecting on. We often want to eliminate everything that makes us uncomfortable. We want a life without pressure, a body that never feels tired, and a mind that never experiences uncertainty. But perhaps life never promised us a world without challenges. What it gave us instead is something far more remarkable: the capacity to adapt. A manageable amount of stress can awaken protective systems. A manageable challenge can remind the body that it is capable of more than it once believed. And sometimes, within the human mind, a difficult question can open an entirely new door. In a sense, maturity may not mean becoming a being that is never affected by anything. Perhaps maturity means becoming a system that knows when to confront, when to adapt, when to protect itself, and when to rest. Tonight, before you drift deeper into sleep, you do not need to worry about every molecule inside your body. You do not need to control every invisible process. Your body existed before you understood it, and it is still carrying out millions of reactions every second without requiring instructions from your conscious mind. There are small battles taking place. Signals are being sent. Minor damage is being repaired. Protective systems are being awakened. And through all of it, life continues to search for a delicate and remarkable balance. Perhaps the gentlest lesson oxidative stress can offer us is not that we should fear every form of pressure, nor is it that we should seek stress at any cost. Instead, it is to understand that strength does not always come from avoiding every challenge. Sometimes, strength comes from moving through a challenge that we can manage, then allowing ourselves enough time to recover and become something different afterward. And as you slowly close your eyes, let your body do what it has learned through millions of years of evolution: to regulate, to repair, to adapt, and to rest. Because sometimes, the greatest miracle of life is not that it is never touched by change. It is that after every disturbance, life somehow finds a way to continue. The brain, DNA, the eyes, and the places that need protection. There are battles taking place inside the body that we never see. There is no sound of swords clashing, no alarm, no flashing warning light. They unfold in almost complete silence, across distances so small that the human eye could never reach them. Within every cell, every molecule, and every delicate strand of DNA, the body is constantly responding to chemical reactions produced by the very processes that keep us alive. And perhaps the strangest thing of all is that some of our most precious structures, the brain, the eyes, and our genetic material, are also among the places that require the most delicate forms of protection. Let us begin with the brain. The brain represents only a relatively small portion of the body's total mass, yet it consumes a remarkable amount of energy. The activity of billions of neurons requires a continuous supply of energy and oxygen. Researchers have found that the brain can be particularly vulnerable to oxidative stress because of its high oxygen demand, intense metabolic activity, abundance of certain unsaturated lipids, and other biological factors. But there is something important to remember. Reactive molecules are not simply enemies. Under normal conditions, some of them also participate in important signaling processes within the brain. The problem arises when the balance is disturbed, and this invites us to reconsider, gently, what protection really means. Protection does not mean eliminating every possible danger. A living system does not function through absolute purification. It functions through balance. The brain cannot separate itself from oxygen. Without oxygen, neural activity would quickly be threatened. Yet the very use of oxygen to produce energy also means that the body must manage certain reactive byproducts. It is the same paradox we have encountered before. The thing that sustains life can also create risk. And the brain lives with that paradox every second. When you think about an old memory, listen to a piece of music, recognize the face of someone you love, or simply lie quietly in the darkness and allow these words to drift through your mind. Billions of electrical and chemical signals continue to move. We often think of thoughts as something abstract, almost weightless. But every thought has a physical foundation. It requires energy. It requires cells. It requires delicate membranes, constantly working mitochondria, and a carefully regulated chemical environment. Perhaps this is one of the things that makes the brain so extraordinary. The structure that creates our inner world depends upon a physical system that is astonishingly delicate. Carl Gustav Jung devoted much of his life to exploring the inner world of human beings. He was fascinated by dreams, symbols, memories, the unconscious, and images that seem almost impossible to measure. But from the perspective of modern science, we can see another layer of wonder. Before a dream can appear as a story in the night, before a memory can return, before a symbol can touch the mind, another invisible world must already be at work. The world of neurons, of molecules, of energy. Consciousness may be like the surface of water reflecting the moon, but beneath that surface lies an entire biological ocean, and DNA is part of that ocean. DNA is often described as the instruction manual of life. The metaphor is simple, but it helps us understand its importance. Inside our cells, genetic material must constantly be protected, copied, monitored, and repaired. Oxidative reactions can affect DNA, altering some of its chemical components or creating forms of damage that cells must detect and repair. If such damage persists or exceeds the body's capacity for repair, it may interfere with the normal functioning of cells. Research on oxidative stress identifies DNA as one of the major biological structures that can be affected, alongside proteins and lipids. But there is something easy to forget. DNA is not a book sitting motionless on a shelf. It is part of a living system. The body is constantly copying, checking, and repairing. Protective mechanisms work like tireless gatekeepers. Some forms of damage are detected and repaired before we ever become aware that they existed. Every day, the body performs countless acts of internal maintenance without requiring instructions from our conscious mind. You do not need to wake up in the middle of the night and command your cells to begin repairing themselves. You do not need to remind your DNA to inspect itself. You do not need to manually activate every protective system in your body. Life learned these processes long before human beings arrived to give them names. And then we come to the eyes, perhaps one of the most poetic places that science can explore. The eyes are the doors through which light enters our inner world. Through them, we see the faces of those we love, the colors of the sky, the movement of waves, the trees in the afternoon, and the room slowly disappearing into darkness. But this remarkable task also gives the visual system its own particular challenges. The eyes are constantly exposed to light. Some structures near the front of the eye encounter radiation from the environment, while tissues farther back, especially the retina, have high metabolic activity and substantial oxygen demands. The combination of light, oxygen, and intense energy requirements makes the eye a particularly sensitive system when oxidative balance is disrupted. For this reason, the tissues of the eye possess complex antioxidant and protective mechanisms. Pause for a moment and think about that. Every time you open your eyes and look at the world, you allow light to enter an incredibly delicate biological structure. That light passes through layers of tissue. It is focused, converted, transformed. Eventually, it becomes neural signals. The brain does not literally see a flower or a familiar face in the simple way we often imagine. It receives signals, interprets them, and creates the experience we call seeing. And throughout this entire process, the body must maintain balance. This is why the eyes are not merely organs that allow us to see. They are living biological systems that are continuously protecting themselves. Researchers have described how oxidative stress can be involved in damage affecting different regions of the eye, from the cornea and lens to the retina and optic nerve. When reactive oxidative processes exceed the defensive capacity of cells, lipids, proteins, and DNA may be affected. But it is important to remember that this is not a simple story in which one single cause produces one single disease. Eye disorders are often complex. They can be influenced by aging, genetics, environmental exposure, inflammation, and many other factors. Oxidative stress is part of a much larger picture, and perhaps this is where science can teach us a lesson in humility. We love simple answers. We want to know who the villain is and who the hero is. We want to believe that if we eat one particular food or take one particular pill, every danger will disappear. But the body does not function like a movie with a single villain. Life is a network. A change in one system can influence another. A substance may be useful in one context and problematic in another. What matters is not always more. Very often, it is the right amount. The brain needs protection, but it also needs activity. DNA needs protection, but it must also be copied and changed according to the laws of life. The eyes need protection from damage, but they were also created to open themselves to the light. Once again, we return to the familiar idea of balance. Perhaps this is a beautiful image to carry with you before sleep. Inside your body are extraordinarily sensitive territories being guarded every second. Your brain is resting according to rhythms of its own. DNA remains within the microscopic spaces of your cells. Your eyes, even when closed, are the result of millions of years of evolution transforming light into experience. You cannot see the gatekeepers. You cannot hear the enzymes at work. You cannot feel every antioxidant molecule participating in its network of protection, but they are there. Perhaps Jung would invite us to reflect on the relationship between the visible world and the invisible one. We often believe that only what appears before our eyes is real, yet our lives are supported by countless processes that never enter consciousness. The heart beats without our command. The lungs adjust their rhythm while we sleep. Cells repair small forms of damage. The brain reorganizes the traces of the day. Most of life happens in silence. And perhaps that is why the night is a good time to remember that we do not need to control everything. There are systems within us that have been working on our behalf for a very long time. This does not mean that we should abandon responsibility for our bodies. On the contrary, understanding the vulnerability of the brain, DNA, and the eyes can help us appreciate our daily choices more deeply. Sleep, a varied diet, appropriate physical activity, avoiding clearly harmful exposures, and seeking professional medical guidance when necessary, are all parts of a much larger picture. But we should also be cautious about promises that are too simple. The claim that one super antioxidant can protect everything. The science of oxidative balance is far more complex. Even in the study of eye health, evidence regarding antioxidant supplementation is not equally consistent for every condition or every individual. And so perhaps the final lesson of this chapter is not fear, but appreciation. Appreciation for the brain that has given you the ability to imagine an entire world. Appreciation for the DNA that carries biological instructions passed through the long journey of life. And appreciation for the eyes that have allowed you to see the sky. A familiar face, light, and darkness. Tonight, as your eyes begin to grow tired and slowly close, remember that closing them does not mean that activity has ended. It is simply a transition. Outside, the world may be growing darker, but inside you, other worlds continue. Chemical reactions still unfold. Signals are still transmitted. Protective mechanisms continue their quiet work. And in the middle of this complexity, almost beyond imagination, you can simply lie still, breathe more slowly, and allow yourself to rest. Perhaps that is the greatest wonder of all. We do not need to understand every secret of the body in order to feel grateful for it. Sometimes, simply knowing that such a vast world exists within us is enough reason to become a little gentler with ourselves. And as the night grows deeper, let your brain rest. Let your eyes remain peaceful in the darkness, and let your body continue doing what it has learned to do through millions of years. Protect, repair, adapt, and continue preserving the fragile yet miraculous flame we call life. The ancient story of oxygen and evolution. If we could travel back billions of years, returning to an Earth far younger than the planet we know today, we might not recognize it. There would be no vast green forests stretching across the land. No fields, no flocks of birds, no human beings looking up at the sky. The atmosphere contained almost no free oxygen compared with today. The oceans, rocks, and skies existed within a completely different chemical world. And strangely enough, the substance we breathe every second to sustain our lives, oxygen, was once one of the most powerful forces of change in the history of our planet. We often think of oxygen as a symbol of life. A person breathes, a fire burns, a leaf releases oxygen in sunlight. In our minds, oxygen seems to belong to familiar and safe things. But in the deeper story of Earth, oxygen was not simply a gift. It was once a tremendous disruption. Billions of years ago, the earliest forms of life existed in a world with very little free oxygen. Most organisms did not depend on oxygen in the way we do today. Then a group of tiny organisms appeared and began doing something that would eventually transform the entire planet. They used sunlight to produce energy, and in the process, they released oxygen. Among these organisms were cyanobacteria. At first, the oxygen they produced did not immediately accumulate in the atmosphere. It reacted with substances already present in the oceans and on Earth's surface, particularly iron-rich compounds. But over time, across stretches of history so vast that the human imagination can barely grasp them, these chemical reservoirs gradually became saturated. Oxygen began to accumulate, and Earth entered a new chapter. This transformation is commonly associated with the Great Oxidation event. It did not happen in a day, a century, or even 1,000 years. It was a profound planetary transition that began changing the chemistry of Earth's atmosphere and oceans more than 2 billion years ago. Try to imagine that. A group of incredibly small organisms, with no thoughts, no plans, and no intention of changing the world, carried out activities that, over time, were powerful enough to transform the atmosphere of an entire planet. There is something here that feels strangely close to the kind of questions Carl Gustav Jung explored. Small and silent forces, hidden beneath the surface, can sometimes create transformations far greater than anything immediately visible. The same can be true in psychological life. A small thought may be repeated for years. A memory that seems insignificant may remain deep within the unconscious. A fear may begin with a single brief moment. But time has a remarkable ability. It allows small things to accumulate, and eventually, an entire inner world may have changed. The story of oxygen is also a story of accumulation. Yet for many organisms living in the ancient world, the increasing presence of oxygen was not necessarily good news. Oxygen is a molecule capable of participating in powerful chemical reactions. Under certain conditions, it can contribute to the formation of reactive oxygen species that may damage cellular structures. Simply put, something that is now essential to complex life was once a major chemical challenge for many ancient forms of life. This is the first great paradox of oxygen. The thing that can nourish life can also threaten life. But life does not survive simply by avoiding every danger. Life survives by learning how to adapt. As the environment changed, organisms capable of tolerating and managing oxygen gained advantages under the new conditions. Over time, chemical defense mechanisms emerged and were refined through evolution. Systems capable of controlling reactive molecules, repairing damage, and maintaining internal balance became increasingly important. And this is where the first guardians of the antioxidant world begin to enter our story. No one knows the exact moment when the earliest protective mechanism first appeared. Evolution is not like an engineer sitting at a desk and deciding to design a complete system. It happens through small variations, natural selection, and the gradual accumulation of traits that help organisms survive. A molecule may happen to have the ability to neutralize a reactive substance. An enzyme may help transform a potentially harmful molecule into something less damaging. A repair mechanism may allow a cell to survive an injury. If these changes provide an advantage, they can be preserved across generations, over millions of years, then hundreds of millions of years, and eventually, they become part of the extraordinarily complex systems we carry inside our bodies today. Within our cells are enzymes such as superoxide dismutase and catalase, along with many other systems involved in managing reactive oxygen species. Glutathione and numerous other antioxidant molecules also form part of an intricate network. But perhaps the most astonishing thing is that these systems are not entirely new inventions of the human body. They are new chapters in a very ancient story. A story that began when life first had to confront a world containing more and more oxygen. Perhaps every time we take a deep breath, we are participating in a story that began billions of years ago. Oxygen enters the lungs. It moves through the blood. It is transported to the cells. Eventually, it reaches the mitochondria, where it participates in processes that help generate energy. But at the same time, the body must manage the reactive byproducts associated with those processes. Modern life did not defeat oxygen. It learned how to live with it. And perhaps this is one of the most beautiful lessons evolution can offer us. Not everything dangerous must be completely eliminated. Sometimes, what matters most is learning how to build a balanced relationship with it. In psychology, this may remind us of one of Jung's central ideas. Human beings do not become mature simply by denying every dark aspect of themselves. What is pushed completely into the shadows does not necessarily disappear. Sometimes, what is needed is awareness, confrontation, and integration. Oxygen is similar. The body cannot remove oxygen from its life. It needs oxygen to function efficiently, but it also cannot allow oxygen-related reactions to proceed without control. Between these two extremes lies balance, and life has spent billions of years learning that art. There is something beautiful about imagining the earliest chemical defense systems. Picture an ancient cell living in a changing world. It has no consciousness like ours. It does not know what is happening. It does not know the future of Earth, but the environment around it is changing. New chemical reactions are appearing. New pressures are emerging, and through tiny changes across countless generations, life begins to respond, not through panic, not through a perfect plan, but through adaptation. It is a simple word, yet almost the entire history of life can be seen through it. Adaptation. A tree cannot run away from winter. It changes the way it functions. A bacterium cannot vote to change the composition of the atmosphere. It must survive under new conditions or disappear. A species cannot know the future, but through small variations and selection across time, life continues to explore new possibilities. And oxygen became one of its greatest tests. What makes this story even more fascinating is that, after becoming a challenge, oxygen eventually opened the door to new possibilities. Aerobic respiration allowed many organisms to extract energy from nutrients more efficiently than many anaerobic metabolic pathways. This helped create conditions that supported the emergence and development of increasingly complex forms of life. Once again, the paradox appears. Something that was once a danger became an opportunity, but only after life learned how to manage it. Perhaps this is what makes the story of antioxidants far deeper than the version we often hear in advertisements for foods and supplements. Antioxidants are not superheroes arriving to defeat an enemy called oxygen. The real story is much more complex. It is the story of a system. Oxygen helps make energy possible. Energy sustains activity. Activity produces byproducts. Those byproducts must be controlled. Cells develop protective systems. Those protective systems must also be regulated. And this entire network continues to operate in every moment of life. We often want to find one simple cause for everything. One good substance. One bad substance. One food that saves the body. One habit that destroys it. But evolution does not seem to tell its story in such simple terms. It tells us about relationships, about trade-offs, about balances that are never completely perfect. And perhaps that is why the ancient story of oxygen continues even today. It continues inside you. When you breathe in, you are using an element that once transformed the planet. When your cells create energy, you are relying on mechanisms shaped by an ancient evolutionary history. When enzymes manage reactive molecules, when cells repair damage, when antioxidant systems become active, your body is continuing a conversation that life began billions of years ago. A conversation between danger and opportunity, between destruction and creation, between damage and repair, between what once was and what must adapt. Perhaps this is why we should look at our bodies with greater wonder. We often notice the body only when it hurts, when it becomes tired, or when something does not work as we expect. But even during the most ordinary moments, an invisible history exists within us. Blood is transporting oxygen. Mitochondria are generating energy. Enzymes are regulating reactions. Cells are repairing themselves. And billions of years of evolutionary history are continuing in every moment. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." If we place those words within a larger space, perhaps we can see that becoming ourselves has never been a journey separated from history. We are the result of stories that came before us. The story of family, the story of culture, the story of memory, the story of the psyche, and, even more deeply, the story of life itself. Inside each of us is a history so ancient that it is almost impossible to imagine. Oxygen once changed the world. Life once had to learn how to confront it. Chemical defense systems gradually emerged, and eventually, after billions of years of transformation, here we are lying in our rooms, preparing to sleep, taking a breath that seems completely ordinary. But there is nothing truly ordinary about that breath, because it carries with it a part of planetary history. And as you slowly close your eyes, perhaps allow one gentle thought to remain. Life does not exist because the world has always been safe. Life exists because it has learned how to adapt to a world that is always changing. There are things that once appeared as threats but eventually became part of growth. There are pressures that force a system to learn how to become stronger. There are changes that initially seem to break the existing order, only to open the door to an entirely new chapter. And perhaps that is the deepest message hidden within the ancient story of oxygen. Life is not a state in which nothing is ever damaged. Life is the ability to continue repairing. It is not the complete elimination of every danger. It is learning how to find balance with danger. It is not remaining unchanged forever. It is changing and continuing to exist. Outside, the night may be growing quieter. Air continues to move gently into your lungs. Your cells continue their stories in the darkness. And somewhere, within tiny chemical reactions that no one can see, billions of years of life's history are still being told. Let that story carry you towards sleep. A story about a planet that once lacked oxygen, about tiny organisms that changed the sky, about a gas that was once a threat, about life that did not surrender, and about how, over a span of time longer than any human dream, life learned one of its most miraculous arts: to transform challenge into adaptation, to transform change into opportunity, and to transform a dangerous world into a place where life could continue to bloom. Plants, nature's great chemists. If there is one kind of living organism that humans can easily misunderstand, it may be plants. We look at a tree and see stillness. We look at a flower and see beauty. We look at a forest and think of silence. But behind that apparent stillness is a world of constant activity. A leaf is capturing light. Roots are searching for water and minerals. Cells are exchanging signals. Molecules are being created, transformed, and transported. Within every trunk, every leaf, and every ripening fruit, an enormous laboratory is working day and night. In a very special sense, plants are nature's great chemists. What makes this even more remarkable is that they perform this work without the ability to run away. An animal can seek shade when the temperature becomes too high. It can flee when a predator appears. It can move to a place where food is more abundant, but a tree usually has to remain where it has taken root. When the sun becomes harsher, the tree remains. When insects arrive, the tree remains. When the soil becomes dry, when fungi attack, when powerful winds blow, when cold arrives, or when radiation changes, the plant cannot simply stand up and leave. So plants have had to learn another art. The art of transformation. Instead of escaping with their legs, they respond through chemistry. This is what makes the world of plants far deeper than its quiet appearance suggests. A leaf is not simply a green surface that absorbs sunlight. It is a complex system, capable of sensing its environment and adjusting its biochemical activity. When conditions become unfavorable, plants can alter the production of many different compounds. Some compounds help protect cells from reactive oxygen species. Some can absorb or interact with light. Some participate in defense against insects and microorganisms. Others play roles in signaling and in the plant's complex interactions with the surrounding environment. And among these chemical treasures, polyphenols are a particularly fascinating group. Polyphenols are not merely a name printed on the label of a healthy food. They are a large family of plant compounds with diverse structures and functions. Flavonoids, anthocyanins, tannins, and many other groups belong to this vast chemical world. In the life of a plant, these compounds do not exist simply to serve humans. They existed long before humans learned how to cultivate crops, brew tea, or press juice from berries. First and foremost, they serve the life of the plant itself. And this is something important for us to remember. Humans often look at nature from our own perspective and ask, what can this compound do for us? But before becoming part of the human diet, each of these molecules had its own story in the struggle of plants to survive. A dark purple berry was not necessarily created to delight our eyes. Its color may be connected to pigments produced by the plant under particular conditions and for particular biological purposes. A compound that creates a bitter or astringent taste may be part of a defense system. A fragrant molecule may help attract other organisms or participate in complex interactions with the environment. Plants do not have a laboratory somewhere outside their bodies. Their bodies are the laboratory. Every cell is a space for chemical reactions. Every leaf is a factory of light. Every root system is a network for gathering resources and communicating. Every flower is a message, written in color and scent. And every fruit is the result of a chemical history stretching across millions of years of evolution. Perhaps this is the moment when we can begin to look at a tree differently. Do not see only stillness. Try to see adaptation. A tree standing quietly in the wind does not mean that it is not responding. It may change according to the seasons, the availability of water, temperature, light, and countless signals from the environment. Its life may not be as noisy as the life of an animal, but that does not make it simple. On the contrary, the inability to move has pushed plants to develop one of the most diverse chemical arsenals on Earth. Carl Gustav Jung was deeply interested in symbols that appear repeatedly in nature and in the human mind. Across many cultures, the tree has always been a powerful image. Its roots reach deep into the earth. Its trunk rises through the open space. Its branches and leaves stretch toward the light. Perhaps it is no accident that human beings often associate this image with growth and maturity. But if we look more closely through the lens of biology, we discover something fascinating. A tree does not grow by eliminating every difficult condition. It grows by responding to them. Too much light can become a source of stress. Changes in temperature can create challenges. Insects and disease can trigger defensive systems. And through its encounters with the environment, the plant produces countless chemical responses. This is where the story of plants reconnects with the theme of oxidative stress that has followed us throughout this journey. Plants themselves must also deal with reactive oxygen species. Photosynthesis, respiration, and environmental pressures can all be associated with the formation of reactive molecules. For this reason, plants need sophisticated systems to maintain balance. Polyphenols, pigments, enzymes, and many other molecules are part of this larger network. No single compound saves the entire plant. No solitary supermolecule creates life. Once again, nature speaks to us about networks. Each compound has a role. Each chemical pathway connects with other pathways. Each reaction takes place within a particular context. And it is diversity that creates the capacity for adaptation. There is something deeply beautiful in this. We often imagine strength as hardness, but plants offer us another definition. Strength can also be the ability to change our response when circumstances change. A tree cannot control a storm, but it may possess structures that help it endure the storm. It cannot prevent sunlight from falling upon it, but it can adjust the way its cells respond. Perhaps this is also an image that speaks to human psychology. We cannot run away from everything. We cannot completely control the world, We cannot guarantee that difficult days will never come. But like a living system, we can develop new ways of responding. We can learn, we can adapt, we can build inner resources. And sometimes, the very things that force us to change become part of our growth. Of course, this does not mean that every form of stress is beneficial. A tree has limits too. Too much heat can damage it. Too little water can prevent it from surviving. Stress can stimulate adaptation only when the system still has enough capacity to respond. The same is true for human beings. There is an enormous difference between challenge and overload, between pressure that may help us grow and prolonged pressure that leaves us exhausted. Nature does not teach us that more difficulty is always better. Nature teaches us that life requires a balance between challenge and recovery, and plants are ancient masters of this balance. Think about color. The green of leaves comes from chlorophyll, the pigment that captures light for photosynthesis. But nature is not made only of green. Red, purple, orange, and yellow appear throughout the plant world. Anthocyanins contribute to many of the red, purple, and blue colors found in flowers, fruits, and certain plant tissues. Carotenoids create many of the distinctive yellow, orange, and red colors we see around us. These pigments do not exist simply to make the world more beautiful to human eyes. They have biological stories of their own. They can participate in interactions with light. They can help attract organisms involved in pollination or seed dispersal. They may reflect strategies that plants have developed across vast stretches of evolutionary time. A garden, viewed in this way, is not simply a place filled with flowers and leaves. It is like a colorful library of chemistry. Each species is writing its own story through its molecules. One plant produces bitterness, another produces fragrance, another creates compounds capable of changing the way other organisms interact with it. And what is truly remarkable is that humans, over thousands of years, have entered this library. We pick fruit, we cook leaves, we ferment seeds, we brew tea, we use spices, we eat vegetables and roots. In countless ordinary meals, we come into contact with molecules that were originally part of a plant's own strategy for survival. But once again, we should remain thoughtful in the face of advertisements that simplify everything. The fact that a compound demonstrates antioxidant activity under laboratory conditions does not automatically mean that it will produce exactly the same effect inside the human body. When we eat a food, we do not consume just one molecule. We take in a complex structure containing fiber, vitamins, minerals, water, and thousands of other compounds. The way our bodies absorb, metabolize, and respond to these substances is also highly complex. Perhaps then, the wisest approach is not to search for one miracle food. Perhaps it is to learn to see diversity itself as something valuable. A diverse garden is often richer than a garden containing only one species. A healthy ecosystem depends on many relationships, and the human diet may also benefit from the richness of many different kinds of food. Inside a blueberry, a tea leaf, a cacao bean, a tomato, or a turmeric root, there is no single miracle waiting for us. There is an evolutionary history. There is sunlight. There is soil. There is water. There is time. There is environmental pressure. And there are millions of years of life's experimentation. When we think about food in this way, an ordinary meal can become much more fascinating. A berry is not merely something to eat. It is a product of light and chemistry. A tea leaf is not merely something placed in hot water. It is part of an organism that has encountered sunlight, rain, insects, and an ever-changing environment. A cacao bean is not merely an ingredient that creates a familiar flavor. It is a storehouse of compounds shaped by a long biological history. And through eating, we enter into an ancient conversation between animals and plants. Plants create chemistry in order to survive. Animals learn to recognize, consume, avoid, or make use of those products. Humans transform them into food, rituals, culture, and medicine. And that circle continues today. Perhaps Jung would have smiled at another familiar symbol. Trees have roots in darkness and leaves reaching toward the light. Their lives do not choose one over the other. They need both. Roots need the earth. Leaves need the light. Existence unfolds between opposing forces. And the story of plant compounds is much the same. There is defense and growth. There is pressure and adaptation. There is damage and repair. There is light that provides energy. But light can also create chemical challenges. Perhaps that is why a tree can become such a beautiful image to contemplate before sleep. It does not hurry. It does not chase the world. It remains where it lives and learns how to respond. It receives light. It endures the wind. It uses water. It exchanges with the soil. It creates invisible molecules. And through all of these processes, it continues to grow. Somewhere outside tonight, perhaps a tree is standing in the darkness. We may look at it and imagine that it is sleeping, but life inside it continues according to rhythms of its own. Cells are still exchanging signals. Molecules still exist and move. Chemical systems are still adjusting to the environment. And just like the trees, your body is now entering another phase of its own rhythm. You do not need to understand every reaction taking place inside a leaf. You do not need to remember the names of thousands of compounds. Perhaps you only need to keep one simple thought. Nature does not create life through perfection. Nature creates life through the ability to respond, adapt, and continue changing. Plants have been doing this for hundreds of millions of years. Without voices, without legs, without the ability to run away. Yet through chemistry, they have learned how to enter into a dialogue with the world. Perhaps, in the silence of a forest, there are more stories than we have ever imagined. Every leaf is a laboratory. Every color is a signal. Every fragrance is a story. Every molecule is a trace of a struggle to survive. And as you prepare to close your eyes, let that image remain with you. A vast forest sinking into the night. Millions of leaves resting beneath the dark sky. No one can hear the chemistry taking place. No one can see the reactions unfolding inside each tiny cell. But life continues to work, quietly, patiently, without display. And perhaps that is the greatest wonder of plants, nature's great chemists. They do not need to speak in order to prove their strength. They simply continue to live. They continue turning light into energy. They continue turning challenges into responses. They continue transforming difficult conditions into part of an evolutionary story. And in the quiet of tonight, as you slowly drift towards sleep, remember that somewhere out there, the green world is still silently writing its story with light, with water, with time, and with thousands of chemical secrets that we have only just begun to understand. Plant colors and their chemical messages. If one day we could look at the plant world, not only through human eyes, but also with the curiosity of a scientist, we might realize that a garden has never simply been a place filled with green, red, yellow, and purple. Every color may be the result of a long chemical process. Every ripening fruit, every flower petal, every leaf changing color with the seasons carries within it a silent story about light, environment, survival, and evolution. Nature does not use color merely for decoration. For plants, color is often part of the way they interact with the world. A bright red tomato, an orange carrot, a cluster of deep purple blueberries, a green leaf slowly turning yellow as the seasons change. We see beauty, but behind that beauty are pigments, molecules capable of absorbing and reflecting light in different ways. And from these tiny molecular interactions, an entire world of color emerges. Among the most fascinating pigments are anthocyanins. They contribute to shades of red, purple, and blue in many flowers, fruits, and plant tissues. But the colors produced by anthocyanins are not always fixed. They can change depending on the chemical environment, especially factors such as pH, and conditions within the cell. This is why the same group of pigments can contribute to remarkably different shades. There is something almost mysterious about a molecule that can make a flower appear red in one place, purple in another, or shift its tone as internal conditions change. But color is not simply something for human beings to admire. For plants, these colors can become signals. A flower may use color to attract pollinating organisms. A ripening fruit changing color may become a signal to animals capable of dispersing its seeds. Pigments can also be connected to the ways plants respond to light and other environmental conditions. Once again, we encounter an important principle of nature. Beauty and function do not necessarily have to be separate. What we call beautiful is sometimes the result of millions of years of adaptation. A brightly colored flower does not know that it is beautiful. It has no concept of art. Yet through evolution, characteristics capable of creating useful interactions with the environment may be preserved and developed. And then human beings enter that world with eyes capable of being moved by color. Perhaps that is one of the most remarkable things of all. What we call beauty may partly be the visible result of survival strategies, written by nature, long before human beings ever appeared. If anthocyanins lead us into the world of reds and purples, lycopene brings us to another familiar shade of red. Lycopene is a carotenoid that contributes to the characteristic red color of tomatoes, watermelons, and many other plants. But not every tomato begins its life as red. As a fruit develops and ripens, changes in its pigments can transform its appearance. Behind a tomato changing from green to red lies an entire biological transformation. The original green color is commonly associated with chlorophyll, the central pigment involved in photosynthesis. As the fruit ripens, the activity and composition of its pigments can change. Chlorophyll declines, while other pigments become more visible. A new color appears like the next chapter in the life cycle of the fruit. And this transformation is not simply designed to make food look more appealing to humans. For plants, ripening can be an important moment in their reproductive strategy. A fruit containing seeds must eventually be dispersed. Color, aroma, and chemical composition can work together to create signals that help the fruit become recognizable to other organisms. Think about that for a moment. A red color on a fruit can be a message without language. There are no words, no sounds, and yet there is communication. Nature learned long ago how to send signals without needing an alphabet. Color is one of those ancient languages. Beta-carotene tells another story. It is a pigment belonging to the carotenoid family and contributes to the familiar yellow and orange colors found in many plants, including carrots, pumpkins, and orange sweet potatoes. Carotenoids do more than simply create color. In plants, they play important roles connected to light absorption and the protection of the photosynthetic system under certain conditions. And once again, color becomes evidence of a biological strategy. An orange carrot did not become that way simply so humans could easily recognize it in the kitchen. Its pigments are part of a biological history. Over millions of years, plants have developed countless chemical pathways to deal with light, temperature, other organisms, and the changing conditions of their environment. Every color is an answer, but sometimes the question it answers was asked millions of years ago. Is this light too intense? Who will come near this flower? Is the fruit ready for its seeds to be dispersed? How can the photosynthetic system continue working efficiently? How can the cell respond to changing conditions? And plants do not answer with words. They answer with chemistry. Perhaps that is why a garden can be imagined as an enormous conversation taking place in silence. The colors we see are only the surface of that conversation. Beneath them are genes, enzymes, cells, signals, light, and countless chemical reactions, constantly changing and interacting. Carl Gustav Jung devoted great attention to symbols and to the ways human beings create meaning from images. For Jung, Colors and images were not merely things that appeared before the eyes. They could become symbols, touching deeper layers of the human psyche. And plants have always been a powerful source of symbolism for human beings. Red may suggest life, energy, danger, or love. Green may evoke peace, growth, and nature. Yellow may make us think of light, harvest, and warmth. Purple may suggest something mysterious, deep, and distant. But here is what makes it especially fascinating. Before these colors became symbols within the human mind, they were physical and chemical phenomena in the natural world. There is a beautiful bridge between these two worlds. At one end is the molecule. At the other is emotion. A molecule absorbs one part of light and reflects another wavelength. That light enters the eye. The signal travels to the brain. The brain interprets it as color, and then that color may awaken a memory. A purple berry may remind someone of a childhood garden. A bright orange fruit may bring back a winter morning. The red of a tomato may carry someone back to their mother's kitchen. In this way, a plant pigment does not end with chemistry. In the human world, it can also become memory. That is where science and psychology meet. We often think that science makes the world less magical because it explains things. But sometimes the opposite is true. The more we understand color, the more extraordinary it becomes. A blueberry is not simply blue-purple. Inside it lies an entire biological process. A flower is not merely beautiful. Its color may be connected to evolutionary history and interactions with other living organisms. An autumn leaf does not simply change color. It undergoes changes in pigment activity and composition as the plant enters another phase of its life cycle. Understanding does not take away the miracle. Sometimes, understanding simply allows us to see the miracle at a deeper level. But when we speak about anthocyanins, lycopene, or beta-carotene, we should also avoid another kind of oversimplification. The belief that a deeper color automatically means a food is certainly better, or that a single pigment can solve every health problem. The human body does not function like a machine that becomes perfect simply by adding the right substance. A food is a complex system. A diet is a long-term pattern. A body is a network. And health is the result of many different factors. Plant compounds must still pass through digestion, absorption, metabolism, and interactions with many other biological systems. For this reason, the story of plant pigments inside the human body cannot be reduced to a simple slogan. Perhaps the most beautiful way to approach them is with curiosity rather than an expectation of miracles. Eating a tomato is not performing a magical ritual, but it is an encounter with part of the history of a plant. Eating a berry does not mean you are consuming a miracle cure, but you are receiving products created by a living organism that learned to survive through chemistry. Eating carrots does not transform us into perfect beings, but it reminds us that the colors of nature often carry stories far more complex than their appearance suggests. And perhaps that is the true value of diversity. When we look at a plate filled with different colors, the green of leafy vegetables, the red of tomatoes, the orange of carrots, the purple of berries, the yellow of fruits, we are not simply looking at a beautiful composition. We are seeing traces of many different survival strategies. Each color represents part of biological diversity. Each plant carries its own history. No single color dominates nature, and perhaps nature's strength lies precisely in that fact. Life does not place all of its hopes on one strategy. It tries many paths, creates many forms, develops many pigments, and allows time to test what can endure. When we look more deeply, we realize that color is not merely appearance. It is a form of information. Information encoded through light and chemistry. A flower says, "Look at me." A ripe fruit says, "The time has come." A changing leaf says, "The season is shifting." A pigment appearing says, "Something inside or outside is no longer the same as before." And the world continues sending these messages every day. We are simply often too busy to listen with our eyes. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, try imagining a garden beneath the moonlight. During the day, it was filled with hundreds of colors. But as night arrives, many of those colors seem to soften. There is no longer enough light for the human eye to perceive them in quite the same way. And yet, the pigments are still there. The molecules remain inside the cells. The chemical life of the plants continues according to its own rhythms. There is something very similar about the human mind. When the world outside becomes darker, it does not mean that the world within has disappeared. Some memories remain even when we are not thinking about them. Some emotions remain quietly present. Some parts of ourselves become visible only when conditions change. And like pigments hidden within a leaf, perhaps we also carry more colors within us than the world can immediately see. Jung was deeply interested in the journey toward becoming a whole human being, a journey that does not merely accept the parts of ourselves that are clearly illuminated, but also learns to recognize what lies deeper within. Perhaps nature reminds us of the same thing in its own way. No single color is enough to tell the whole story. A garden is beautiful because of its differences. A forest is alive because of its diversity. And a human life cannot be described by only one shade. We have radiant days. We have seasons when our colors fade. We have moments of transformation, like a leaf at the end of autumn. But change does not necessarily mean disappearance. Sometimes, it simply means that another pigment is beginning to appear. And so, as you close your eyes tonight, allow the colorful world of plants to drift through your mind like a slow and gentle dream. Think of the red of ripening fruit, the orange of light and carotenoids, the deep purple of berries, the ancient green of leaves quietly gathering sunlight. Every color is a story. Every story begins with a molecule, but in the end, it becomes part of an entire planet. And perhaps that is the most beautiful thought we can carry with us before falling asleep. Nature has never truly been silent. It speaks to us through light, through color, through chemistry, and through time. We only need to slow down a little. And our eyes and minds may begin to realize that even the smallest color on a flower petal can contain an entire story about life. When plants send signals to the human body, perhaps in the most ordinary parts of life, we rarely realize that a piece of broccoli resting quietly on a plate, a clove of garlic with its sharp aroma, a slice of golden turmeric, or a handful of tiny berries are not merely food. They are the products of a history of survival stretching back hundreds of millions of years. Plants cannot run away from predators. They cannot seek shelter when the sun becomes too intense. They cannot move when the soil becomes dry, nor can they fight bacteria, fungi, or insects with claws and teeth. So they learned another way to live. They became silent chemists. Within every leaf, every seed, every layer of skin, and every color of fruit, plants create countless compounds as a kind of chemical language, a language that helps them adapt to the world around them. And the remarkable thing is that when we eat those plants, part of that chemical language enters our own bodies. Broccoli, for example, contains compounds that are part of the plant's own defense system. When plant tissue is damaged, components that were previously separated can come together and form biologically active substances. In humans, some plant-derived compounds are studied for their ability to interact with cellular sensing and response systems. This does not mean that a single vegetable is a miracle capable of solving every problem. Real science is often more humble than advertising. But there is something worth contemplating here. Food does not simply provide energy. Many components of food also participate in a complex dialogue with the body. Garlic tells a similar story. Its powerful aroma is a sign of the rich chemistry taking place inside those small cloves. When garlic is cut or crushed, structures within its cells change, allowing chemical reactions to produce sulfur-containing compounds. For the plant, These compounds are part of its defense mechanisms. For us, they have become the subject of many scientific studies, exploring how plant compounds interact with the human body. Something as ordinary as cutting garlic in the kitchen can awaken an entire chain of chemical reactions. Turmeric carries a similar story. Its brilliant yellow color seems to remind us that nature rarely creates color simply for decoration. In the plant world, pigments and accompanying compounds often play multiple roles connected to the environment and survival. When they become part of human food, these molecules begin a new journey. But here again, we need to remain clear-minded. The discovery of a compound in a laboratory does not automatically mean that eating large amounts of the food containing it will produce an equally large effect. The human body is not a simple machine that operates according to the formula, more is always better. Biology is always a story of dosage, context, and balance. Perhaps small berries offer one of the most beautiful images of this silent conversation between plants and humans. Their deep blues, purples, reds, and blacks are created by various pigments and chemical compounds. For the plant, these colors may be connected to attracting other organisms, responding to light, and adapting to environmental conditions. For us, they become part of a diverse diet. When we look at a blueberry or a strawberry, we are looking at the result of a long evolutionary history. A history in which plants learned to use chemistry to communicate with sunlight, insects, microorganisms, and weather. Carl Gustav Jung was deeply interested in the symbols human beings share within psychological life. If we look at the natural world with a similar spirit, perhaps we can recognize that food carries meanings beyond the numbers printed on a nutrition label. A berry is not merely sugar, fiber, or vitamins. It can also become a symbol of our connection with the living world. We often imagine that we stand outside nature, observing it as something separate from ourselves. But every meal reminds us that this is not entirely true. The outside world enters us every day. There is something beautifully humbling in that realization. We do not create the oxygen we breathe. We do not create the light of the Sunday. And we do not create the countless compounds that plants have spent millions of years evolving. We are part of a network far greater than the ego often wants to admit. Yet it is important not to turn this truth into another myth about superfoods. No single fruit, root, or supplement can replace the entire picture of a balanced life. The body does not survive because of one hero. It survives through cooperation between food, sleep, movement, environment, rest, and countless systems working quietly within us. Perhaps this is the gentlest lesson plants offer humanity. Strength does not always exist in one extraordinary thing. Sometimes it exists in diversity. A healthy garden does not contain only one species. A resilient ecosystem does not depend on only one link. And perhaps the human body is similar. It does not need a miracle. It needs a rich world of small choices, repeated patiently over time. So, on a quiet evening, as you prepare to close another long day, try thinking about the plants that passed across your table. A leafy vegetable once turned toward the light. A berry once grew beneath the rain. A piece of turmeric once rested silently beneath the soil. They carry their own chemical stories, and when they become food, those stories continue within you. Perhaps this is one of the greatest wonders of life. We do not live alone. With every breath, every meal, and every cell, we participate in an ancient conversation between human beings and nature. And sometimes, to hear that conversation, we do not need to do anything at all. We simply need to slow down, to look more closely, and to realize that inside a piece of broccoli, a clove of garlic, a slice of turmeric, or a tiny berry, there may be traces of millions of years of evolution. A gentle reminder that life is always more complex than it appears, and that nature is still quietly telling us stories which, if we become still enough, we may finally begin to hear. Foods rich in antioxidants, Perhaps when we hear the phrase foods rich in antioxidants, many familiar names immediately come to mind. Berries, leafy greens, tea, coffee, cacao, spices, nuts, beans, and olive oil. But if we see them only as sources of antioxidants, we may miss a far more interesting story. Each of these foods is not simply a pill created in a laboratory for one specific purpose. They are plants, seeds, leaves, and fruits that have traveled through a long journey in nature. Before arriving on our tables, they faced sunlight, rain, insects, disease, changing temperatures, and countless other challenges. The compounds we are interested in today, polyphenols, carotenoids, flavonoids, and many other molecules, are often part of the complex survival story of the plants themselves. Let us begin with the small world of berries. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, grapes, and many fruits with deep red, purple, or blue colors often capture our attention because of their vivid appearance. But those colors are not merely decoration. Various groups of plant pigments and compounds contribute to the colors we see. A tiny fruit hanging from a branch beneath the sunlight may contain an entire world of complex chemistry. And when we eat it, the body does not simply take in antioxidants as though it were an empty container being filled. These compounds pass through digestion, transformation, absorption, and interaction with many other systems. That is why the science of food is always more fascinating than a simple slogan. There is something worth remembering. The body does not live by keywords. It does not know what a superfood is. It recognizes molecules, energy, signals, and changes occurring within. A healthy diet, therefore, does not necessarily have to be a search for the most miraculous fruit. Perhaps it is more like creating a garden. A beautiful garden does not require every plant to be the same. It is diversity that creates depth. Vegetables tell a similar story. The green of leafy vegetables, the orange of carrots and squash, the red of tomatoes, the purple of cabbage or eggplant, each color can reflect different chemical components and structures. A colorful plate does more than make a meal visually appealing. It can also reflect the diversity of plant foods we choose to include in our lives. And sometimes, diversity matters more than finding a single hero. One day, you eat leafy greens. Another day, you add beans. Breakfast includes fruit. In the afternoon, you enjoy a cup of tea. A meal is brightened with fragrant spices. There is no need to turn every meal into a perfect ritual. Small choices, repeated over time, can become a pattern of living. Tea offers another fascinating example. A leaf is picked, processed, dried, and steeped in hot water, eventually becoming a drink that has accompanied human history for centuries. Tea contains many plant compounds, including polyphenols that have been widely studied. But perhaps the most interesting thing about tea is the way it becomes part of life itself. A cup of tea is not only chemistry, it can also be a slower rhythm. A few minutes when nothing else needs to be done. Steam rising gently inside a quiet room. From a psychological perspective, sometimes the way we eat and drink can matter almost as much as what we consume. Carl Gustav Jung spent his life exploring the deeper layers of human experience, and one lesson we might take from that journey is that human beings do not live only through things that can be measured. We also live in a world of symbols, habits, memories, and meaning. An evening cup of tea can become a symbol of transition, a sign that the day is beginning to close, a reminder that the body is allowed to slow down. And that moment, although it cannot be measured in units of antioxidant activity, is still part of the experience of being alive. Coffee has an equally fascinating story. Many people think only of caffeine when they think of coffee. But the coffee bean is a complex chemical world containing many different compounds. During roasting, further chemical transformations occur, creating the aromas and characteristics we recognize. Yet, like every other food, coffee should not be turned into a savior. It may suit one person and not another, and the time of day it is consumed can also affect sleep. Perhaps the lesson here is observation. Instead of asking only, "What is the best thing?" perhaps we can ask, "What works well for my body and my life?" It is a more humble question, but perhaps also a deeper one. Cacao brings us into another world, a world of bitterness, fragrance, and history. Before becoming a bar of chocolate, cacao beans pass through harvesting, fermentation, drying, and processing. These steps do not simply change flavor, they also transform the chemical composition of the final product. Cacao contains many plant compounds, but once again, different cacao products can be very different from one another. A heavily processed food, containing large amounts of added sugar and fat, is not exactly the same as the original plant material. This is one of the fascinating things about food. It does not remain still. A fruit changes after it is harvested. A seed changes when it is roasted. A leaf changes when it is fermented. An ingredient changes when it is cooked. So when we speak about antioxidants in food, we are speaking about a world that is constantly moving. Perhaps spices are the most concentrated storytellers in the plant world. A pinch of cinnamon, a slice of ginger, a little turmeric, a few grains of pepper. The amounts may be small, yet their aromas can transform an entire meal. Spices contain numerous compounds responsible for their distinctive scents and flavors, shaped through the plant's own biological strategies. Human beings learn to use them not only for flavor, but also to build cultural identity. Every region has its own scent. There are dishes that can awaken memories with a single breath. This is where food becomes a doorway into the mind. Jung emphasized the importance of the deeper contents of the unconscious, where images and experiences can continue to exist outside our everyday attention. A scent can sometimes awaken an entire world that seemed to be sleeping. The smell of cinnamon may recall winter. The aroma of coffee may bring back an old morning. The scent of turmeric may return us to a family kitchen. And in this way, plant compounds do not merely enter the body, they can also enter memory. Nuts and beans tell another kind of story. A seed is a promise of the future. Inside a small structure may lie energy and materials capable of beginning a new life. Beans, seeds, and legumes provide many different nutrients, while also containing diverse plant compounds. But what makes them interesting is not one miracle molecule. They remind us how whole foods contain many components existing together. No piece of music is created from only one note. No forest requires only one species. And perhaps the body does not need us to place all our hope in one substance. Olive oil, particularly less refined varieties, is also often mentioned in discussions of diets rich in plant foods. It contains fats and certain plant-derived compounds, depending on the variety, growing conditions, harvesting, and processing. But perhaps the important thing is not to worship any particular oil. A food gains meaning within the larger context of an overall diet and lifestyle, and this brings us back to the idea of balance. The body is not a battlefield where we must destroy every free radical. Food is not an army of heroes rushing in to rescue individual cells. Life is more complicated than that. The body needs energy. Metabolism produces reactive molecules. The body possesses systems of defense and repair. Food provides raw materials. Cells respond to their environment. Everything takes place within a network that is constantly changing. So rather than asking, which food contains the most antioxidants, perhaps we can approach the question more gently. Which foods could make our meals more diverse? Which colors have we forgotten for too long? Are we eating enough different kinds of plants? Are we giving ourselves time to truly enjoy what we eat? These questions do not create urgency. But perhaps health does not always need panic. Sometimes it needs patience. A berry today, a bowl of vegetables tomorrow, a handful of nuts, a serving of beans, a cup of tea, a meal enriched with spices. Each choice may seem very small on its own, but life itself is made from small things repeated over time. And when night arrives, Perhaps this is the moment to see the world of food differently, not as magical medicine, not as a list of things we must consume in order to become perfect, but as gifts from a living planet. Berries carry the colors of light. Vegetables carry stories from the soil. Tea carries the history of leaves. Coffee carries the aroma of beans transformed by heat. Cacao carries a journey from fruit to seed. Spices carry memories from distant lands. Nuts and beans carry the promise of life. Olive oil carries sunlight and fields. And all of them eventually meet in something very simple, a meal. Perhaps that is the most beautiful realization we can carry with us before sleep. We often search for great things to transform our lives, yet sometimes life has been quietly caring for us through the smallest things. A purple berry, a warm cup of tea, the fragrance of spices, a bowl of beans, a colorful plate of vegetables. There is no miracle hidden inside a single food, but there is something that may come closer to a miracle. The natural world, through millions of years of evolution, has created countless forms of life, and every day, through the simplest meals, we are given another opportunity to reconnect with that world. So tonight, you do not need to remember the names of every compound. You do not need to count every unit or search for the most perfect food. Just remember that diversity is often more beautiful than extremism. Balance is often more sustainable than obsession, and sometimes the best way to care for yourself begins by looking at an ordinary meal with a little more gratitude. Then let the long day come to an end. Let the body rest. Let the mind become quiet. And know that while you sleep, trillions of cells continue their silent work, receiving energy, repairing, adapting, and maintaining balance in ways that your conscious mind does not need to control. Perhaps life has always known more than we imagine, and sometimes the wisest thing to do before sleep is simply to trust that quiet rhythm, cooking, fermentation, and the transformation of food chemistry. There is something fascinating that we often forget when we look at a meal. Food is not made of objects that simply stand still. A freshly picked tomato, a tea leaf beginning to wither, a cacao bean newly removed from its fruit, a jar of fermenting vegetables, or a slice of bread just taken from the oven. All of them are in a state of transformation. From the moment a plant is harvested until it becomes part of a meal, countless chemical reactions quietly take place. Temperature changes it. Oxygen affects it. Light, time, moisture, microorganisms, and the ways we prepare it can all alter its composition, structure, and flavor. So when we speak about antioxidants, or biologically active compounds in food, we should not imagine a fixed number permanently locked inside every vegetable or fruit. Food is more like a story that continues to be written, and the kitchen is one of the places where that story changes most visibly. Imagine an apple that has just been cut in half. In the first moment, the flesh is bright and fresh, but after some time in contact with the air, its color begins to change. A chain of chemical reactions has been set in motion. That seemingly simple event reminds us that food continues to change, in a certain sense, even after it has left the plant. Enzymes may remain active for a period of time. Molecules continue to interact with their environment. Components that were once separated inside cells may meet when the structure is cut or crushed. Freshness, therefore, is not merely a subjective feeling. It is connected to time and transformation. A vegetable harvested today may be different from itself after many days of storage. But this does not mean that an older food automatically becomes worthless. In biology, change does not always move in only one direction. Some compounds decrease. Some structures become easier to absorb after cooking. New substances may form. And some transformations can make food safer, easier to digest, or more enjoyable. Human beings were working with these transformations long before we had names for chemical reactions. We cook, we dry, we smoke, We soak, we age, we ferment, and over thousands of years, the kitchen became one of humanity's oldest laboratories. Heat is one of the most powerful forces of transformation. When vegetables are cooked, their cell walls soften. Some structures break apart. This can make certain compounds more accessible to the digestive system. But heat can also reduce or alter substances that are sensitive to temperature. That is why the question, is raw or cooked food better, rarely has one universal answer. It depends on the food, the compound being considered, the cooking time, and the method of preparation. This is an interesting lesson. Nature rarely seems to favor absolute answers. Some people want a simple rule. Raw is always best, or cooked is always best. But biology does not always follow our desire for simplicity. Perhaps a more accurate idea is this. Every method of preparation creates a different version of the food. A raw tomato tells one story. A tomato slowly cooked into a sauce tells another. Neither story necessarily cancels the other. They are simply different. And perhaps this diversity of preparation is one of the reasons food has become such a rich part of human life. Tea offers a beautiful example of transformation. Before becoming the fragrant liquid inside a cup, tea leaves may pass through several stages of processing. Depending on the type of tea, the leaves may be withered, oxidized to different degrees, rolled, dried, or fermented according to traditional methods. These processes influence the color, aroma, and chemical composition of the tea. A tea leaf is not simply picked and preserved unchanged like an object in a museum. It is taken on a journey, a green leaf, a transformation, a new fragrance emerging, a new kind of tea being born. And when hot water touches the leaves, chemistry begins moving once again. Compounds dissolve into the water, aromas spread through the air. Temperature changes our entire sensory experience. Eventually, something that was once a leaf on a branch becomes a moment of rest in a human hand. Cacao follows a similarly transformative journey. Cacao beans do not naturally possess the chocolate flavor we know so well. After being removed from the fruit, the beans commonly undergo fermentation, followed by drying and roasting. Each stage contributes to chemical changes and the development of distinctive flavors. Microorganisms, enzymes, heat, and time all participate in a long sequence of transformation. That is one of the wonders of food. Sometimes, something must change before it can become the thing we learn to love. And fermentation may be the clearest example of this. When people hear the word fermentation, they may imagine food that has simply been left for a long time. But fermentation is not merely waiting. It is a process in which microorganisms and enzymes can participate in transforming the components of food. Sugars may become other compounds. The environment changes. Flavors change. Textures change. Inside a jar of fermented food, an entire biological world may be at work beyond the reach of the naked eye. Human beings learned long ago to cooperate with these tiny organisms. We are not the only species capable of changing the world through tools. We are also a species that learned how to create conditions in which other living things could work alongside us. A jar of fermented food can therefore become a beautiful symbol of cooperation. We prepare the ingredients. We create suitable conditions. But after that, time and microorganisms continue the work. From the perspective of Carl Gustav Jung, this image may suggest something deeper. Human beings often want to control everything. We want to know exactly what will happen. We want to measure every step. We want to predict every result. But life contains processes that can only unfold when we learn how to wait. A seed needs time. A wound needs time. A thought needs time to mature. A jar of fermented food also needs time. Some transformations cannot be forced. You cannot shout at a seed and make it grow faster. And you cannot force genuine maturity simply through impatience. Perhaps this is why cooking and fermentation can teach us a very ancient form of wisdom, the wisdom of patience. Food preservation is also a conversation with time. Cooling can slow certain processes. Drying changes the amount of water available and alters the environment in which microorganisms operate. Sealing food can limit exposure to oxygen. Light can affect certain sensitive components. No method of preservation completely freezes time, but human beings have learned how to slow down or guide the process of transformation. And here, we begin to notice something that feels very close to human life itself. We are also constantly changing. No day is entirely identical to another. No experience passes through us without leaving some kind of trace. What we see, hear, love, and lose can all reshape the inner structure of the mind. If food can be changed by heat, time, and environment, then human beings can be changed as well. A gentle environment can nourish us. An excessively harsh environment can make us defensive. Repeated experiences can become habits. Repeated memories can become part of identity. But like food, transformation is not necessarily always a form of loss. Sometimes, change is how life discovers a new form. That is also why we should be cautious about advertisements promising that one method of preparation preserves 100% of nutrients, or claiming that a food remains completely unchanged after cooking. Food is living matter. Transformation is natural. Perhaps the wiser question is not, how can we prevent every change? But rather, how can we understand and respect these changes? Eat many kinds of food. Try different methods of preparation. Combine fresh foods with cooked foods. Explore different traditions of fermentation. Do not turn eating into a fear of every molecule, because sometimes, when we try to control health too completely, we lose the joy that is also an important part of being alive. A meal is not merely the sum of its nutrients. It is an experience. The sound of vegetables being chopped, steam rising from a pot, the aroma of freshly baked bread, the color of tea in a cup, the time spent waiting for a meal to cook, the hands of someone preparing food for another person. And sometimes, it is also a form of love. Perhaps that is why the meals we remember most are not always the ones with the most perfect nutritional profile. We remember a meal because of the people sitting beside us. We remember the smell of a dish because it is connected to childhood. We remember a particular tea because we once drank it on a rainy afternoon. The chemistry of food and the chemistry of memory, in a certain way, meet within the human experience. When night arrives and you prepare to close another long day, think of the kitchen as a strange yet familiar place. There, time can be seen in a ripening piece of fruit. Heat can be smelled in the aroma of food. Microorganisms can leave their signature in the gentle sourness of fermented foods. And ordinary ingredients can become something entirely different through nothing more than the combination of time, temperature, and patience. Perhaps this is also a beautiful metaphor for life. We are not creatures who arrive in the world completely finished. We change. We are transformed by time. We carry traces of the environments through which we have traveled. Some parts of us are softened by experience. Some parts become stronger. Some old things disappear. And new qualities may emerge that we never knew we possessed. So instead of fearing every change, perhaps we can learn to look at transformation with curiosity. A tea leaf must change before becoming fragrance inside a cup. A cacao bean passes through many transformations before creating a familiar flavor. A fermented food must travel through time before becoming something new. And human beings are no different. Perhaps the person you are today is not exactly the same as the person you were many years ago. But that does not necessarily mean you have lost yourself. Perhaps you are simply continuing to become. And as you lie down tonight, let that thought gently accompany you into sleep. In the natural world, very little truly stands still. Life is always moving, transforming, and searching for a new state of balance. Food changes, the body changes, the mind changes, and perhaps the most beautiful thing is not found in keeping everything unchanged forever. Perhaps it is found in the ability to continue adapting while still preserving something essential within ourselves. Like a meal slowly cooking over time, perhaps some of the most important things in life also need to be allowed to mature according to their own rhythm. And when your thoughts begin to slow down, let them settle like tea leaves resting quietly at the bottom of a cup. Today has completed its work. Your body is still quietly continuing its own processes. And in the stillness of the night, perhaps you do not need to do anything more. Simply rest. Simply allow time to continue its gentle work, because sometimes, within the transformations we cannot see, life is quietly creating a new version of who we are. Oxidation becomes visible in the kitchen. Perhaps the most fascinating thing about oxidation is that we do not need to enter a modern laboratory to see it. It is happening right inside the familiar kitchen of every home, quietly and persistently. Sometimes, within just a few minutes, an apple that has just been cut in half begins to turn brown. A piece of avocado, left exposed to the air, slowly loses its fresh green color. A bottle of oil kept for too long may develop an unusual smell and an unpleasant taste. And then, with only a few drops of lemon juice on the surface of a piece of fruit, we may see the process of discoloration slow down. These seemingly small events are actually living lessons in chemistry, unfolding before our eyes every day. In a way, the kitchen may be the oldest laboratory humanity has ever known. Let us begin with the apple. When an apple is still whole, the world inside it is carefully organized. Its cells form tiny compartments. Different compounds are kept in separate places. Enzymes operate within controlled environments. But when a knife passes through the flesh of the fruit, that structure is disrupted. Components that were once separated begin to come into contact with one another. The freshly exposed surface also meets the oxygen in the air, and a chain of reactions begins. Slowly, the familiar pale flesh turns brown. The apple is not sad. It is not simply dying in the way we often imagine. It is chemistry becoming visible. The browning process in many fruits and vegetables is associated with enzyme-driven reactions that occur when plant tissues are damaged and exposed to oxygen. Certain molecules can be transformed into darker-colored products. And strangely enough, we often begin paying attention to chemistry only when it leaves behind a visible mark. When we cannot see anything happening, we tend to assume that nothing is happening. But in reality, most of the living world operates invisibly. Cells are metabolizing. Proteins are being built and broken down. Enzymes are catalyzing tiny reactions. Molecules are colliding, connecting, and separating. Oxygen is being used. Energy is being produced. And sometimes, we only become aware of these hidden processes when an apple suddenly turns brown before our eyes. Perhaps this is also a fitting image for the way Carl Gustav Jung viewed the inner world. Jung was deeply interested in what takes place beneath the surface of consciousness. He understood that human beings are not defined only by what they can immediately see or name. Beneath our everyday behavior, words, and decisions lies a much larger world of memories, emotions, instincts, and unconscious contents. A chemical reaction may be underway long before it leaves an obvious sign. Human psychology can be the same. A sadness may begin with something very small. A wound may remain hidden for years. A change in the way we see life may quietly take shape before we realize that we have become a different person. We often notice change only when it finally has a color, when it has become clear enough that we can no longer ignore it. Like the brown surface of an apple, avocados tell us another story about contact with the environment. The green flesh of an avocado can change color after it is cut and exposed to the air. Once again, oxygen and chemical reactions become part of the story. It reminds us that air, something so light and invisible, is actually a force capable of changing matter. We often imagine that change must come from dramatic events, a storm, an explosion, a separation, a revolution. But nature shows us that important changes can sometimes come from things so gentle that we barely notice them. A little oxygen, a little light, a passage of time, a surface that has just been opened. That is all. And then, matter begins to change. Our inner lives also have moments when a new surface is opened. A conversation, a book, a sentence overheard by accident, an old memory suddenly returning. When some part of us opens, it begins to encounter something new, and that encounter can change us. Sometimes, change frightens us, because we want things to remain as they are. We want the apple to stay white, the avocado to stay green, the memory to remain untouched, the body not to grow older, the people we love not to change. We want to remain the person we were yesterday. But life is not built upon the principle of permanence. Life is built upon movement, and oxidation, although it is sometimes described only in negative terms, reminds us of something deeper. Contact creates change. When we speak about oil becoming rancid, we encounter another visible expression of oxidation. Many fats can change over time under the influence of oxygen, light, heat, and storage conditions. These changes can affect the smell, taste, and overall quality of food. A bottle of oil that was once mild and pleasant may gradually develop an unpleasant odor. Nuts stored for too long may lose the flavor that once made them enjoyable. Once again, time leaves its mark. What is fascinating is that we often think of time as something abstract, but in the kitchen, time has a smell. It can smell like oil that has changed, like old bread, like fruit that has become overripe, like fermented food. Time can appear in color, texture, and flavor. We cannot see time directly, but we can see what time does. Perhaps this is one of the closest experiences we have of life's invisible nature. We do not see yesterday leaving. We simply notice that our hair has grown longer, a wrinkle has appeared, a child has grown up, a house has become old, a relationship has changed. Like oil sitting in a bottle, we recognize that time has passed by, observing the traces it leaves behind. And then, a small but beautiful detail appears in the kitchen: lemon juice. A few drops of lemon juice can help slow the browning of certain fruits. Its acidity can influence the activity of enzymes involved in the process, while vitamin C and other reducing compounds may participate in chemical processes that help slow discoloration under certain conditions. A drop of lemon does not stop time. It does not make food immortal. It simply slows a process. And sometimes, that is enough. There is something deeply gentle about that idea. In life, we cannot prevent every change either. No method can guarantee that we will never feel sadness, never grow old, never experience loss, and never be hurt. But there are things that can help slow the wear and tear. Enough sleep, a balanced meal, an honest conversation, a period of rest, a trustworthy friend, a healthy habit repeated over time. These things do not make life immune to difficulty, but they can become emotional. Drops of lemon, small influences that help us maintain balance for a little longer. Perhaps this is an interesting way to think about health. Health does not necessarily mean a state in which nothing ever changes. It may be understood as the ability to continually adjust to change. Our bodies are constantly responding. Our minds are constantly adapting. One important point is that we often divide the world into two simple sides: good and bad. Oxidation is bad. Antioxidants are good. But the science of the body is far more complex than that. Some reactive molecules and oxidative signals play roles in normal biological processes. The body is not simply a battlefield where everything associated with oxidation must be destroyed. It is more like an ecosystem that requires regulation. Jung also emphasized the importance of not viewing psychological life through overly simple oppositions. Human beings do not mature by trying to eliminate every dark aspect of themselves. Growth involves learning to recognize and integrate the complex parts of who we are. This is where a small kitchen can lead us toward a larger thought. A browning apple is not nature's failure. An avocado changing color is not proof that oxygen is an enemy. A bottle of rancid oil reminds us that matter changes. Lemon juice is not magic. All of these are simply parts of a world that is always moving. Perhaps what matters is not trying to create a life without change. What matters more is understanding what is changing, why it is changing, and how we can respond. That is the difference between fear and understanding. When we do not understand why an apple changes color, we may see only something strange. When we understand part of the process, the mystery does not disappear. It simply becomes deeper. We realize that behind a familiar event lies an entire world of enzymes, molecules, and chemical reactions. And behind our ordinary lives, there may be hidden worlds as well. Behind a smile may be a memory. Behind anger may be fear. Behind silence may be something that has never been spoken. Behind an obvious change is often a long process that unfolded quietly. Tonight, as you prepare to drift into sleep, try imagining your kitchen in a different way. Think of the fruits resting on the table, a bottle of oil sitting quietly in the corner, a lemon with its soft yellow peel. These familiar objects are telling us stories about chemistry, time, and change. Nothing is ever completely still. Even in silence, the world continues to move. Even while we sleep, the body continues to work. Cells continue repairing. Systems continue adjusting. The mind continues moving through dreams. And perhaps that is why sleep is not truly a stopping point. It is simply another form of movement. Just as an apple changes color when it encounters the air, we too are shaped by what we encounter each day. The words we hear, the images we see, the people we spend time with, the thoughts we repeat. So before you close this day, perhaps choose something gentle for your mind to encounter. A beautiful memory, a moment of forgiveness, a grateful thought, or simply silence. Because just as a few drops of lemon juice can slow a reaction on the surface of a piece of fruit, sometimes a moment of peace can slow the chaotic reactions taking place within us. You do not need to solve everything tonight. You do not need to control every change. You do not need to keep everything exactly as it is forever. You only need to understand that change is part of life. And sometimes, the greatest lessons are hidden in the smallest things. An apple changing color, an avocado slowly darkening, a bottle of oil telling the story of time, and a small lemon reminding us that we cannot always stop a process, but sometimes we can gently slow it down. And now, let today become like a reaction that has reached its conclusion. What needed to happen has happened. What needed to change has changed. Now, you can rest. Outside, the world is still moving, but in this moment, you do not need to chase it. Simply close your eyes, breathe slowly, and allow your body to return to its natural rhythm. Because sometimes, to understand the greatest mysteries of life, we do not need to look up at the stars. Sometimes, we only need to look carefully at an apple that has just been cut in half. The truth behind the miracle of antioxidants, perhaps one of the most appealing ideas to modern human beings, is the promise of a simple miracle. We live in a world filled with too much information, too many choices, and too many worries about health. So it is easy to understand why we are drawn to short and reassuring promises, such as, eat this fruit and you will stay young longer. Take this supplement and your body will be cleansed. Find the right antioxidant and you can protect every cell from the destruction of time. These promises are like small lights in the complicated forest of science. They make us feel that everything can be controlled, that there is one simple secret waiting to be discovered, that somewhere there is a single key capable of opening the door to health, youth, and a longer life. But the deeper we go into the world of antioxidants, the more we begin to realize that nature does not seem to enjoy simple stories. There is no single food capable of replacing an entire diverse diet. There is no pill capable of replacing sleep, movement, our environment, our relationships, and the years of life we have already lived. And there is no antioxidant that works like a lone hero entering the body to destroy everything we have labeled as bad. The body does not function like a movie. It functions like an ecosystem. In a movie, we usually have a main character and a villain, but in biology, the same molecule can play different roles depending on where it is, how much of it is present, when it appears, and the context in which it operates. Reactive molecules that we often fear can also participate in normal cellular signaling processes. Oxidative reactions are not always evidence of destruction, and antioxidants are not always better simply because there are more of them. This is one of the most uncomfortable yet important truths of science. Dose and context matter enormously. Human beings often love the idea that more is better. If a blueberry contains beneficial compounds, we may assume that 10 blueberries must be better than 1. If a moderate amount is good, perhaps a capsule containing a highly concentrated dose must be even better. And if one capsule is good, why not take several? But the human body is not an empty container waiting to be filled with more and more things labeled as beneficial. It is a self-regulating system. A piece of music does not become more beautiful simply because every instrument plays louder. A garden does not become healthier if we water it continuously. A fire does not become more useful simply because we keep adding fuel. Life often needs balance more than extremity. Carl Gustav Jung once wrote, "In Modern Man, in Search of a Soul, the pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." This was not a statement about nutrition directly, but it offers an interesting perspective on the tendencies of the human mind. We are often quick to move from one extreme to another. We may once believe that something is completely unimportant, and then suddenly turn it into the key to solving all our problems. We can move from ignoring nutrition to monitoring every gram of food with anxiety, from dismissing a compound to worshipping it. Antioxidants have experienced something similar in the imagination of the public. As science began to explore oxidative stress and the complex network of compounds capable of participating in cellular protection, the information quickly became fascinating. But between the laboratory and advertising, there is a very large distance. In the laboratory, scientists ask questions. In advertising, people often want to provide answers. Science says, "Under these conditions, we observed." Advertising sometimes says, "This is what you need." Science says, "This relationship is complex." Advertising often says, "The solution is simple," and it is in the space between these two ways of speaking that many modern myths are born. Think about the idea of a superfood. The word itself sounds powerful. It creates the image of a food that is somehow superior, almost possessing extraordinary abilities. Berries become superfoods. A certain seed becomes a superfood. A rare powder from a distant land becomes a superfood. Then comes another tea, another seaweed, another fruit, another ancient ingredient that suddenly becomes the newest promise of better health. But nature has no obligation to divide food into superheroes. A nourishing meal is rarely created by one ingredient alone. It is created through diversity. A meal containing vegetables, fruits, legumes, grains, nuts, appropriate sources of protein, and necessary fats may not sound as exciting as an advertisement for a miraculous superfood, but sometimes the less dramatic things are the ones that remain meaningful over time. A blueberry does not need to be called a miracle in order to be worth appreciating. A cup of tea does not need to promise immortality in order to become a beautiful part of daily life. A simple meal does not need to be advertised as an ancient secret in order to nourish the body. Perhaps we need to learn to appreciate food for what it truly is, rather than turning it into characters in modern mythology. And there is something even more important to remember. What we eat does not enter an abstract body. It enters the body of a specific human being, a person with a particular lifestyle, a particular history, a particular environment, a particular sleep pattern, a particular level of physical activity, a unique microbial ecosystem, a particular state of health. For this reason, questions about nutrition can rarely be answered with a simple list of things that are completely good or completely bad. Some people seek antioxidants because they want to slow the process of aging. Some seek them because they fear illness. Some want more energy, and some simply want to feel that they are doing something right for their bodies. But behind our interest in nutrition, there is sometimes more than a desire to be healthy. There can also be fear. The fear of growing older. The fear of losing control. The fear that one day, the body will no longer function as it once did. From a Jungian perspective, this is deeply worth considering. Human beings do not simply search for food. We also search for meaning. And sometimes, when life becomes unpredictable, we attempt to create meaning through small rituals of control. A particular drink every morning, a list of forbidden foods, a supplement that must be taken at exactly the right time, a cleansing ritual repeated again and again. These habits are not necessarily harmful, but perhaps we should occasionally ask ourselves, am I truly caring for my body? Or am I using a ritual to soothe my fear of uncertainty? It is a very subtle boundary. Self-care can bring freedom, but the obsession with constantly optimizing ourselves can become another form of imprisonment. Perhaps the more important question is not, is this food perfect? But, is my relationship with food healthy? Can I eat without fear? Can I enjoy a meal without guilt? Can I accept that my body is not a perfect machine? Can I care for myself without turning my entire life into an endless project of optimization? When understood properly, the science of antioxidants does not make the world less hopeful. In many ways, it makes the world even more fascinating. It shows us that the body possesses remarkably complex protective systems. It shows us that plants create countless compounds through their interactions with the environment. It reminds us that food is not simply made of calories. It is a world of structures, signals, molecules, and reactions. But precisely because of this complexity, we should be cautious. When someone offers us an answer that sounds too simple, an antioxidant in food does not exist in a vacuum. It exists alongside thousands of other compounds, within the structure of the food itself, together with fiber and countless other elements that an isolated capsule cannot necessarily reproduce. When we remove a single molecule from its natural context and consume it in a highly concentrated dose, the result is not necessarily the same as eating the food that naturally contains that molecule. This is also a larger lesson about life. A part does not always represent the whole. You cannot understand a forest by studying only one leaf. You cannot understand a piece of music by listening to only one note. You cannot understand a human being by judging only one action. And perhaps you cannot understand health by focusing on only one nutrient. We often search for the single key. But perhaps health is more like a door that requires many keys. Sleep, movement, a diverse diet, a healthy environment, meaningful relationships, the ability to recover, and perhaps even peace within the mind. No single element does all the work, but many small elements can work together to create a better life. This may not be as exciting as the promise of a miracle, but it has one important advantage. It is closer to reality, and reality, when we look at it carefully enough, can sometimes be more beautiful than a miracle. A colorful meal does not need to be worshipped. A berry does not need to save the world. A cup of coffee or tea does not need to become the secret to eternal youth. They simply need to find their proper place within a life of balance. Tonight, before you sleep, perhaps you can step away for a moment from all the promises telling you that one thing will repair your entire life. No miracle pill can live your life for you. No food can love for you. No antioxidant can replace a life lived with awareness. Taking care of your health does not necessarily have to be a battle. It can be a relationship between you and your body, between knowledge and patience, between science and humility, between the desire to change and the ability to accept what cannot be controlled. Perhaps the real miracle is not contained inside a capsule. Perhaps it is the fact that your body, at this very moment, is carrying out millions of processes without requiring your conscious command. Cells are working, systems are communicating, small forms of damage are being repaired, signals are being sent, life is continuing, and you do not need to understand every detail in order to recognize the wonder of it. Carl Jung once wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Placed beside the story of health, perhaps these words can be understood as an invitation to look more deeply at our own motivations. When we chase the newest advertisement, what are we truly searching for? A healthier body? Or the comforting certainty that time will never be able to hurt us? The answer may be different for every person, but awakening sometimes begins with accepting that there is no formula capable of removing all uncertainty from life. And strangely enough, that acceptance can bring peace. You do not need to eat perfectly. You do not need to discover the most powerful superfood. You do not need to turn every meal into a moral test. You only need to learn, to make reasonable choices, to listen to your body, and to give yourself enough gentleness to understand that health is a long journey, not a competition that must be won tomorrow. So as you prepare to drift into sleep, perhaps you can leave the loud promises of advertising outside the door. There is no miracle you need to rush out and buy tonight. There is only your body. There is only your breathing. There is only a remarkable living system continuing its work quietly in the darkness. And perhaps the most beautiful truth about antioxidants is this: they are not solitary saviors. They are only one small part of a much larger network. A network of food, cells, environment, time, and life itself, just like us. No one truly exists alone. No good thing comes from only one factor. And perhaps, instead of endlessly searching for miracles, we only need to learn how to recognize the wonder that already exists in the most ordinary things. A simple meal, a deep night of sleep, a body quietly restoring itself, a new day waiting to arrive. And tonight, you can rest peacefully. You do not need to become perfect in order to become healthier. You do not need to discover the final secret of life. Sometimes, the wisest thing we can do is simply live with balance, live with awareness, and trust that small changes repeated patiently over time can create meaningful differences in ways that are almost invisible. Close your eyes, breathe slowly, and allow your body to rest, not only from the day, but also from the constant pressure to become better. Because perhaps, in the very moment you stop chasing a miracle, you may finally begin to see the miracle that has been quietly living within you all along. Life is the art of balance and recovery. Perhaps, after traveling through the entire journey of oxygen, free radicals, oxidative stress, and the antioxidants, quietly working within every cell, we begin to recognize something simple, yet profound. Life is not built upon absolute perfection. Our bodies are not motionless machines in which every injury must be eliminated and every danger must disappear. On the contrary, life exists through a continuous dialogue between building and breaking, between energy and wear, between injury and recovery. Every breath brings oxygen into the body, while also opening the possibility for powerful chemical reactions. Every cell that produces energy must also deal with byproducts that may cause damage. Yet within this paradox, something remarkable appears. The body does not merely resist difficulty. Sometimes, it learns from it. Imagine the body as a city that never sleeps. Within that city, trillions of cells work silently. Somewhere, energy is being produced. Somewhere else, DNA is being repaired. Damaged molecules are being removed. New proteins are being built. There is never a moment when everything is perfectly intact. Some structures become damaged. Some reactions drift off course. Some molecules lose their stability. But then, repair systems begin to work. Enzymes are activated. Immune cells are mobilized. Old materials are dismantled to make room for new structures. Life is not the condition of never being damaged. Life is the ability to return, to adapt, and to continue after the injuries that cannot be completely avoided. Carl Gustav Jung spent much of his life exploring the invisible processes taking place within the human soul. He understood that people do not grow simply by keeping only what is pleasant. In Jungian psychology, development often begins when we confront the things we once wanted to avoid. The shadow is not automatically the enemy. It may contain parts of ourselves that have not yet been recognized. But Jung did not suggest that we should love the darkness or become lost within it. What matters is balance between consciousness and the unconscious, between what we know and what we do not yet understand, between light and the shadow within ourselves. There is a strange similarity between this idea and the world of biology. Free radicals are not simply destructive enemies that must be eliminated at all costs. Under certain conditions, they participate in cellular signaling, support immune activity, and contribute to adaptive mechanisms. The problem is not their existence. The problem is imbalance. When the production of reactive molecules exceeds the body's capacity to control and repair the resulting effects, oxidative stress can occur. Human emotions can be understood in a somewhat similar way. Negative emotions do not automatically destroy a person. Sadness, anxiety, disappointment, and fear can all carry information, but when they become too intense, last too long, and are no longer balanced by rest, connection, meaning, and support, they can exhaust the mind. Perhaps this is one of nature's deepest lessons. We do not need a life without pressure. We need a life with enough capacity to recover. A healthy body is not a body that has never been challenged. It is a body capable of responding to challenges, adjusting, repairing, and returning toward balance. A mature soul is not one that has never been broken. It is one that can slowly rediscover its shape after life's difficult events. What happens inside our cells can also make us reconsider the way we live. We often want everything to be solved immediately. We want exhaustion to disappear immediately. We want sadness to heal immediately. We want the body to remain healthy and the mind to remain positive at all times. But nature does not operate through instant perfection. A wound needs time to heal. A muscle needs time to recover after exertion. A painful memory may also need time before the mind can place it into a new understanding. Not every form of healing can be seen from the outside. Sometimes, recovery is simply a deep night of sleep. When we sleep, the outside world seems to move farther away, but inside the body, life continues. Processes of regulation and repair continue quietly. The brain does not simply switch off. The body does not stop existing. Sleep is like a space in which we give ourselves permission to rest. And perhaps this is something modern human beings often forget. Rest is not a reward reserved for people who have worked hard enough. Rest is part of existence itself. In the world of Carl Jung, dreams were also a doorway into deeper layers of the mind. When conscious awareness becomes quieter, other images may emerge. They are not always clear. Sometimes they are strange, fragmented, and difficult to understand. But they remind us that beneath the surface of ordinary life, the psyche continues working in ways that reason cannot always control. Just as the body repairs many forms of damage without our conscious awareness, the mind may also have its own silent processes. There is something deeply humbling about recognizing that we do not control everything. We cannot command every cell to behave exactly as we wish. We cannot order our hearts never to hurt, and we cannot swallow a pill and turn life into a state of perfection. But we can create better conditions for recovery. We can eat with greater variety. We can move our bodies in reasonable ways. We can sleep more adequately. We can spend time in safe and meaningful relationships. We can allow the body to do the work it has learned through millions of years of evolution. And perhaps most importantly, we can learn not to turn health into an obsession, because sometimes the fear of being harmed prevents us from living naturally. We can become trapped by promises of superfoods, miraculous supplements, and methods advertised as pathways to eternal youth. But the human body is not a mathematical equation with one correct answer. Life is a complex network. Food, sleep, movement, environment, genetics, stress, and relationships are all woven together. Perhaps that is why the final lesson of antioxidants is not that we should search for as many antioxidants as possible. The deeper lesson is balance. More is not always better. Less is not always worse. What matters is context, regulation, and the ability of a living system to respond to itself. A little challenge can help the body adapt, but too much challenge without time for recovery can lead to exhaustion. A little solitude can help us understand ourselves, but prolonged isolation can wound the soul. A little anxiety can help us prepare, but endless anxiety can turn life into a room without windows. In every area of existence, life seems to search for a rhythm. Tension, then relaxation. Activity, then rest. Injury, then repair. This is the art of life. When we look at the journey of oxygen, we encounter a beautiful paradox. The very substance that helps us produce energy can also contribute to cellular damage. Yet without oxygen, we cannot survive. So life does not choose to eliminate risk completely. Life learns to live with it. Perhaps human beings must do the same. We cannot eliminate all uncertainty. We cannot protect ourselves from every loss. We cannot build a wall high enough to prevent all pain from entering, but we can build resilience. Tonight, as you prepare to fall asleep, perhaps you do not need to think too much about every molecule inside your body. Just remember that within you exists a vast and persistent world. Cells are repairing, systems are balancing, some reactions are ending so that others may begin. You do not need to remain awake to witness it all. Life knows how to continue its work in the darkness, and perhaps that is a gentle thought to carry with you before sleep. You do not need to be perfect in order to continue. You do not need to have never been hurt in order to become strong. You do not need to understand everything happening within your body and soul in order to trust your capacity to recover. Life is not the absolute victory of light over darkness. It is a delicate balance between both. And just as the ocean endlessly creates waves and then allows them to dissolve upon the shore, our bodies and souls are also constantly moving between change and return. So let tonight become part of that process of recovery. Release the thoughts that do not need to be solved yet. Allow unfinished questions to remain unfinished. Some things do not need to be answered tonight. Some wounds need time. Some changes are happening very slowly, deep within you, like the invisible processes of life we have been exploring. And when you close your eyes, remember that even during sleep, the journey continues, not through hurry, not through perfection, but through the oldest, most persistent, and most remarkable rhythm of life: challenge, adaptation, recovery, and continuation. And so, our journey through the strange and silent world of antioxidants gradually approaches its final steps, from the invisible free radicals born within every cell, to the paradox of oxygen, the substance that sustains life while also contributing to certain forms of damage to the quiet defenses of glutathione, enzymes, vitamins, and countless natural compounds. All of them have been telling us a story much larger than anything written on the label of a dietary supplement. It is the story of life. A life that is not perfect, a life that is not unchanging, a life constantly moving between injury and healing, between wear and renewal, between challenge and adaptation. Perhaps before beginning this journey, Many of us thought of antioxidants as tiny heroes, little warriors, constantly fighting an enemy called the free radical. But the deeper we go, the more we realize that nature is rarely as simple as a battle between good and evil. Free radicals are not merely destroyers. Oxygen is not merely a source of life. Stress is not merely something to avoid. And antioxidants are not miracles capable of solving every problem. The truth is more complicated, but it is also more beautiful. Because within that complexity, we begin to see a principle that seems to appear throughout nature. Life does not survive by eliminating every possible danger. It survives through the continuous ability to find balance again. Every day, our bodies take in oxygen. Every day, our cells produce energy. And every day, alongside that energy, countless other chemical reactions take place. Some molecules become damaged. Some structures need repair. Some cells must be removed to make room for new ones. And yet, we rarely hear any sound from these processes. There are no alarms, no flashing lights, no one standing beside us to say, "Right now, your body is trying to repair itself." It all happens in silence. Perhaps that is what makes the human body one of the greatest wonders we so often forget. We live inside our bodies for an entire lifetime, yet sometimes know very little about the persistence they show on our behalf. When we sleep, they continue working. When we forget to take good care of ourselves for a few days, they continue trying to adapt. When we move through periods of stress, exhaustion, or overwhelm, countless systems within us continue searching for ways to keep us alive. That does not mean the body is invincible, and it does not mean we can simply abandon all responsibility. But perhaps we can learn to look at the body with greater gratitude. Eating a more diverse meal is not a punishment. Going to bed a little earlier is not a waste of time. Walking beneath gentle sunlight, drinking enough water, resting when tired, allowing ourselves moments of silence. Perhaps these are not such small things after all. They may be ways of cooperating with the life that already exists within us. Carl Gustav Jung spent much of his thought exploring the human journey of becoming oneself. For him, we do not mature by denying the complicated parts of the psyche. We mature by gradually recognizing them, by looking at what we once refused to see, by accepting that every human being contains contradictions. Perhaps the body teaches us something similar. There is no living state that is completely pure. There is no energy without some form of wear. There is no activity without the need for rest. There is no summer that does not eventually move toward autumn. And perhaps there is no mature human life that passes entirely without pain. But pain is not always the end. Sometimes it is a signal. Sometimes it reminds us to stop. Sometimes it forces us to change. And sometimes, just as mild forms of stress can encourage the body to activate its mechanisms of adaptation, the difficulties we encounter in life can reveal strengths we never knew we possessed. Of course, not every form of pain has meaning. We do not need to romanticize suffering. We do not need to believe that every terrible thing that happens is somehow a gift. Some things are simply painful. Some losses cannot be explained by any philosophy. But even when we cannot choose what happened to us, we can still, step by step, choose how we care for what remains. Perhaps that is one of the deepest forms of recovery. Not returning to become the person we were yesterday, but learning to continue becoming a different version of ourselves, a version that may carry its cracks, yet still knows how to keep moving forward. A version that understands it does not need to conquer everything. It simply must not abandon itself. And when we look back on the entire journey through the world of antioxidants, we may begin to see a beautiful image. The body is like a forest. Within that forest, processes of construction and destruction are happening at the same time. Some things are being born, some are dying, some substances are being created, others are being broken down. Not every change is dangerous. Many forms of change are precisely what allow life to continue. Plants are the same. They produce thousands of compounds as they adapt to sunlight, temperature, insects, and the environment around them. The red of berries, the orange of carrots, the purple of certain fruits and vegetables are not merely beautiful colors. They are part of a long history of adaptation. And when human beings eat those plants, another fascinating encounter takes place. Nature enters the body, not in the form of a miracle, but in the form of food, in the form of molecules, in the form of diversity. Perhaps that is why we do not need to desperately search for a single superfood. Life rarely places all its hopes on one thing alone. A healthy forest does not exist because of only one kind of tree. A resilient ecosystem is created through diversity, and the human body is much the same. One meal does not determine your entire health. One night of insufficient sleep does not determine your entire life. One imperfect meal does not destroy everything. What matters more is often what we do repeatedly, gently, and consistently over time. Perhaps that is the most peaceful lesson that the science of antioxidants can offer us. Do not become obsessed with perfection. Seek balance. Respect diversity. Understand that the body does not need us to control every molecule. It needs reasonably good conditions so that it can continue performing the extraordinary work it has learned through millions of years of evolution. And now, as the night grows quieter, perhaps you do not need to remember every scientific term we have explored. You do not need to remember the name of every enzyme. You do not need to remember every type of free radical. You do not need to remember the exact details of every chemical reaction. Just keep one small thought with you. Right now, inside you, there is still a world quietly at work. A world of cells, of flowing energy, of protective mechanisms, of repair, of ancient rhythms that existed long before human beings ever appeared. You carry an entire small universe within you, and that universe does not require you to understand everything in order for it to continue functioning. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is simply allow yourself to rest. Let today come to an end. Let the unfinished things wait until tomorrow. Let the questions that have no answers yet remain quietly in the darkness. You do not need to solve your entire life before going to sleep. You do not need to become a more perfect version of yourself tonight. Your body understands how to recover, and your mind can learn that too. So take one slow, gentle breath and breathe out. If today was exhausting, allow it to come to a close. If you did well today, gently thank yourself. And if today did not go the way you hoped, that is all right too. Tomorrow, your body will still wake up, your heart will still beat, your cells will continue their work, and you will have another opportunity to begin again. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the mysterious world of antioxidants. A place where science, life, and reflections on what it means to be human meet within things that often seem invisible. If you enjoy gentle, profound, and surprising stories about the mind, the body, nature, and the mysteries of existence, please subscribe to the channel so you will not miss the journeys ahead. Each video is a small moment of stillness in the middle of a hurried world, a place where we can slow down together, explore, and listen to the quiet stories that are unfolding both within us and all around us. And now, if you are ready, put your phone down, relax your shoulders, gently close your eyes. Let your breathing become slower. Trust that you do not need to do anything else right now. Tonight, your only task is to rest. May you have a truly peaceful night. May your body recover, your mind grow quieter, and gentle dreams carry you softly through the darkness. Sleep well. And if you would like to continue joining us for more profound stories in the nights to come, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until we meet again on another gentle and mysterious journey.